across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, this is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company today, and I'm going to be here all of next week, so thank you in advance for that as well. There's loads to discuss today, including Labour's humiliation, Plaid Cymru winning the Caerphilly by-election, but Reform UK didn't do as well as they had hoped. In fact, they put a lot of time, effort and money into it and didn't get the seat in the Welsh Senate. We'll get reaction from John McTernan, former advisor to Tony Blair, in just a second. The UK is also seeking to extend the one-in, one-out deal with Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands, given how few people have actually been deported to France and the fact one of them has come back on a small boat again. Should it be extended to other countries? What do you think about that? We'll talk about digital ID as well. The Prime Minister has rode back on some of what he's been saying about that. He says it won't be mandatory and it'll only be when you change jobs. Previously, he had said that it could be used for other things. He said certainly no one without digital ID would be refused healthcare treatment, for example, which was the worry of a number of different people. We'll also talk about the militant doctors walking out and Wales Streeting accusing their union of trying to wreck the NHS recovery. And if you saw my programme at the weekend, as an increasing number of people do, and thank you for the people who watch and listen to it, Waitrose had a problem with one of its employees, a very, very wonderful young man, a autistic worker who has now got an offer from Asda. We'll talk to his mother, we'll check in on that story and follow that one up. We'll get the sport as well between now and 7 o'clock, loads to look forward to, and I want to make sure that you get your thoughts on the air between now and 7 o'clock. There are lots of ways to do that. You can give me a ring, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. There are other ways to get in touch as well. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. Keep it to less than a minute if you would. We'll play out as many of those as we can. You can send that on the main number. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message on the main number or ring me on the main number, which is of course 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss between now and 7 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. So lots to discuss in terms of Labour's victory in Wales. Some of the statistics really, really interesting actually. Labour's gone down from 46% in the 2021 vote share in the Senate election results. This was a by-election for a Senate seat, the Welsh Assembly obviously. Labour at 46% in this area that held for 100 years, and it's now gone down to 11% of the vote, so down 35 percentage points. That is a very, very serious drop. Up basically the same number, about 34 percentage points, is Reform UK, which has done very, very well, but came second, didn't win the seat. That went to Plaid Cymru, who got nearly 50% of the vote, 47.4%. And shortly after winning the by-election, the Plaid Cymru's new Assembly member spoke about it.
What's your message to Labour?
You better go back to the drawing board, I would suggest, and think again, because you are on the way out. You are on the way out after 100 plus years. The Labour Party, I'm afraid, now is definitely a dying beast.
Lindsay Whittle there, who is the newly elected Senate member for Plaid Cymru. This was the view of the Reform UK chairman, David Bull, on the result.
4 years ago, we were polling at 1.7%, and last night, or this morning, we got 36%. That is a meteoric rise by any kind of metric. Actually, I think that's pretty unparalleled in modern British political history. So we did extremely well. Of course, we are disappointed not to do that. Labour absolutely decimated, going down to 11%, and the Tories wiped off the board. Quite frankly, they might as well pack up and go home at 2%.
Well, Labour were much more than decimated. That would be a drop of 10%, but it's a lot more than that. Labour have gone down from 46% to 11%, so barely a quarter of what, in fact less than a quarter of what they had previously, down 75% rather than the decimation, which would be 10%. Right then, we're going to talk to John McTernan in a minute. He's a former advisor to Tony Blair. But in the meantime, I just want to speak to Andrew in Halifax. Andrew, we've had this real humiliation for Labour. What do you make of that, and what do you think are the key issues that we should be talking about today, Andrew?
Hi, Peter. Well, first of all, I'm extremely annoyed as well as disappointed that Reform didn't pull it off. But I think it shows the mentality of the British left, is that faced with a choice of voting for a party committed to defending Britain's borders, they instead prefer to opt for a party that's committed to the destruction of Britain altogether, i.e. Welsh separatism. So I think it says a lot about their mentality.
Well, it's very interesting you mention that, because we have quite a lot of the Labour vote voting perhaps strategically, perhaps tactically for Plaid Cymru. We also have the Conservative vote, which has gone down from 17.3% to 2%. Greens and Liberal Democrats barely moved there. But clearly there was an anyone but Nigel kind of campaign here. And I think, Andrea, what do you think? I think the anyone but Nigel kind of movement is just starting, and people will vote for any party that's not Reform UK because they want to stop Reform UK, and this strategic stuff will continue, I think.
I think you're right. What I would suggest, though, Peter, is that they close because they voted for Plaid Cymru, which is an open borders party. So what I suggest is that they do something like close the Bell Hotel in Epping and ship all the migrants to Caerphilly, and those that then voted love the open borders policy could wallow in it.
Well, I think they wouldn't be too happy about that. But you're right, absolutely, in the fact that if you do want open borders, which I do not, often the people who are most pro-open borders are the ones that don't deal with them, that don't live with them. And there's so many people who say, oh yes, by all means have those migrants in a hotel. Well, those people often don't live near a hotel. They don't access the public services that those migrants will be accessing, Andrew.
Exactly. I mean, I'm from Halifax, but at the moment I'm actually on a quick break in the Lake District, and I'm staying in the constituency of Tim Farron. And it's very interesting that, the people here voted for Tim Farron. They voted for the Liberal Democrats, another party committed to open borders, and yet I haven't seen one sliver of diversity and the consequences of that open borders policy the whole 3 days I've been holidaying in this constituency.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. Why do you think Reform didn't go through? Did they not throw enough at this in terms of this by-election, do you think? I mean, we had an awful lot of activity down there, money spent on it, campaigning, doors knocked, and so on. They really, really wanted to break through, and actually some of what Reform UK have said, and some of what the polling would say as well, is that Reform UK will probably end up as maybe the largest party, maybe not the government of Wales, but certainly a very significant threat, far more than they have been previously. You look at 2021, 1.7% in this constituency, and it's gone up to 36%.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's just something in the water in Wales and Scotland that the brains of the people there are permanently hardwired into leftism. Let's just hope that, the majority electorate here in England can put them right.
It'll be fascinating to see when the main Senate election happens. We've also got the Scottish Parliament elections. We've got loads of local elections in England, thousands of seats up for grabs. It's far bigger than last year. Are you confident Reform UK is going to break through in all three parts of Great Britain, or do you think it'll just be England, Andrew?
Well, I would prefer it as a unionist for it to be all three. In fact, I would actually prefer it to be all four, because I think Reform should stand in Northern Ireland. But
I agree.
I would prefer it to be in all three parts of the union. But as I say, if there is something in the Welsh and Scottish mindset that they must constantly go for left-wing parties, irrespective of the fringe fanaticism that it brings to their particular corner of the United Kingdom, then as far as I'm concerned, they can suck it up.
Yeah, well, listen, Andrew, I think a lot of people will agree with a lot of what you said. What do you think of this? It's only one Welsh by-election. It's the Welsh Senate, their assembly, for example. I mean, that's fair enough. Certainly that, well done to Plaid Cymru. They've got that. But from Reform UK's perspective, they will be disappointed. And David Bull, of course, former presenter on the station, puts a good spin on it and says that they have, very reasonably saying that Reform have gone up from 1.7% to 36%. We hope to speak to John McTurnan in a minute or two. But in the meantime, let's speak to Mark in Lincolnshire, who's been in touch. Mark, what do you make of this victory for Plaid Cymru in Wales, when many might have expected a Reform UK victory, Mark?
Hi there, Peter.
Hi, Mark.
Hi there. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily shock me. I mean, Wales has always been a very left-wing country. part of the world, isn't it, really? At the end of the day, it's been like that. I mean, Labour have been in power for, well, since it was devolved, I believe.
Since devolution, over a quarter of a century. And it's a really good point. And I wonder, does this say more about Labour? Does it say more about Reform UK? What do you think?
I think it says more about the brainwashing of the people in Wales, to be fair. They don't tend to get, I mean, they vote for, as the last guy was saying, really, they tend to vote for very left-wing policies, but they don't really have to tolerate the left-wing policies, do they? Particularly regarding things like diversity. Because I would imagine the vast majority of people that are voting, that are not going to vote for a party like Reform, are basically on the point of immigration because they think it's cruel. They think it's, we shouldn't do this, because this is what the left-wing have done for decades anyway, Peter. They play on your empathy. It's terrible. These people have such a hard life and blah, blah, blah. And it's absolute nonsense, of course. But again, as the last guy was saying, you tend to find that in these areas, they don't have a huge amount of diversity because, let's be honest with you, the majority of people coming into the country don't want to live in Wales, do they?
It's not just about diversity, though, is it? Maybe there are people who are really annoyed with Labour and what Labour have done, and I think Plaid Cymru is another left-wing party who can do something relatively similar, but with a different stripe.
I think as well, what you also have to bear in mind is it's part of the world. I mean, it's very similar to where I'm from originally, the North East. It's a very industry-based part of the world, particularly the mines and what have you. So I think it was always, as soon as it was, got devolution, it was always going to be a left-wing part of the world because of the hatred that they had for, particularly, the Tories, for, destroying the unions and the
previously in this particular, you're right to some degree, Mark, but previously in this constituency the Conservatives got 17.3%. That's now down to 2%, a real collapse for them.
It's quite it's obviously there's a lot of nuance in any kind of election, in any kind of area. You can go from one area to another and it'd be completely different, won't it? But one thing I would like to say on Wales in particular, which I find quite interesting actually, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. It quite fascinated me. Did you know that there are now more Muslims in the country than there are Welsh?
In Wales?
I think that's quite an interesting statistic.
That can't be right, Mark. That cannot be correct.
That's correct. They outnumber the Welsh by about 800,000.
I just don't think that's right, Mark. Listen, I tell you what, we're going to go to a break now, but stay on the line, Mark, and I want you to send your source to our producers. We'll check that out. I just don't think that's right, Mark, but we'll happily check it. I just don't think it can be right, actually, but we will have a look at that nonetheless. Ross Clark is coming up. He's a columnist for The Sun about digital ID. Keir Starmer rowing back on that. Is he just diluting this policy? Will it ever actually happen? And if it does, what will you do about it? Will you be accepting digital ID? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call.
Nigel is very popular in actual fact. There are more people supporting reform now than there are supporting Labour or the Conservatives. He is exceptionally popular. We have in Keir Starmer the most unpopular Prime Minister since records began, since opinion polling started. This is the most unpopular Prime Minister, and there's a good reason for that. He's incompetent, he's not capable. People have seen in just less than 18 months how bad he is at being Prime Minister.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There's some lovely news that's coming to us, and that is that Tom Boyd, who is an autistic man who'd been volunteering at Waitrose, he attempted to get some paid work there. They said no, and now a rival chain of supermarkets, Asda, in his town have asked him to work for them, and they will pay him. We'll be talking to Frances Boyd, who's Tom's mum, a little bit later on, and various people involved. We were the first to talk about it on air, but various people involved, Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, and so on. So we'll talk to Frances a wee bit later on. Tom's just not in a position with his autism that he can be interviewed, but Frances will tell us all about it, and that is definitely something that is really, really a wonderful victory for them. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And just ahead to my weekend programme, Sarah Pochin is going to be on tomorrow, the Reform UK MP. She's going to be taking calls tomorrow morning between 10 and half 10. Whatever your call is, you can give us a ring and on 0344 499 1000, and we'll make sure that as many people as possible put calls to Sarah, who's taking calls for a full half an hour tomorrow morning between 10 and half 10 on my programme, which is on between 10 and 1. And then on my Sunday programme between 10 and 1, I'm going to be speaking to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. He's going to be talking to me at about 10:30 on Sunday. So the Health Secretary, often the government don't speak to us on a Sunday. It's their choice, of course, but Wes Streeting is speaking to me on Sunday around about 10:30. So look forward to that and speaking to Sarah Pochin tomorrow. Right then, let's talk about the Prime Minister, because yesterday he released this clip on social media about digital ID.
So I'm in Brighton today. This is Barclays Bank, and I've been talking to customers about digital ID, and they're really enthusiastic. It'll have your basic information on it. For everything other than proving you've got a right to work, it won't be mandatory. You don't have to have it, but you can have it. You can use it for anything that requires identification, and there are lots of things. If you want to rent, for example, if you want to apply for a mortgage, if you want to get your child into primary school, there's a catchment area, and you've got to show where you live, proving who you are, what your date of birth is, will just be able to be done with digital ID. They're really up for it, and I think once you understand just how much easier it'll make life, so many more people will be too.
Yeah, I'm not really convinced by that video of those people. I mean, you get a phone call saying, right, you're going to be in a video with the Prime Minister. Great, wow, exciting. Okay, what's it about? It's about digital ID. He's going to be talking about how you're really enthusiastic about digital ID. If you're really enthusiastic about digital ID, I'd love to hear from you, because I'm not sure there are too many people who are that enthusiastic about it, to be honest. The government says it's not going to be applied retrospectively. UK workers will now only need it when they apply for a job after its proposed introduction in 2028. So, I mean, he's gone all over the place on this. He's talked in various ways, and we've had various government ministers saying it could be used and suggested it could be used for other things. Let's speak to Ross Clark. He's a columnist for The Sun. Ross, we're getting mixed messages about this.
Yes, we are. The government's sort of backtracking a bit, isn't it? I mean, it's poor Keir Starmer. This is a prime example of his reverse Midas touch. Before he announced his plan for digital ID in September, there was actually a majority of the public told pollsters they're in favour of digital ID. Since he made the announcement, that's crashed, and now there's a big majority against digital ID because now we have this sort of details. It's quite clear that they're not going to achieve what they want to from it. We're told, well, we're only going to need it when we get a job and when we get a new job. And Keir Starmer might be looking for a new job sooner rather than later, I think. But that's the only thing that it now seems to be used for. But I mean, the problem with the the black economy is that it operates under the radar. You've got if you've got employers not asking recruits for their national insurance numbers at the moment, why are they suddenly going to start asking for people's digital ID?
Well, yeah, I mean, what difference is this going to make if people are employing people without asking for their national insurance number? And I mean, when I got this job, for example, I had to show my national insurance number, or I had to tell them my national insurance number, and I had to show my passport. I mean, in what way is this different? I don't understand why they're adding another layer of bureaucracy here. They say this simplifies things, but for example, some things that people might want digital ID, if it exists, a lot of people just don't want it full stop, and that's absolutely fine, perfectly legitimate position, which I basically hold. However, the next question, I suppose, is if it is there and if it does exist, well, why can't we use it for things like the National Health Service? If you're saying, I am entitled to national health care, I've paid my taxes, here is my digital ID, scan, good, okay, off you go for your treatment. If digital ID is to exist and has to exist, and the government tells us it has to exist, well, maybe that's okay to access services to some degree. Some people might think that's a reasonable argument, some might not. But I mean, if you're not going to prevent people from not accessing services that they're not actually entitled to, then again, what's the point?
Well, exactly. It's going to cost a lot of money to set us up all with a digital ID. And so if you are going to go to that expense, why wouldn't you want to introduce it for other things as well? But go back to that point of, government saying it will make things more convenient and so on. At the same time, government's trying to claim that it will make sort of financial transactions more secure and this sort of thing. But those two things are in tension, because if it's making things easier for us as consumers, it's also going to make things easier for the criminals.
Oh, I think we've lost Ross there. We'll get him back soon, I'm sure. But as he was saying there, will make things easier for the criminals. Reg has been in touch. Says those people with Keir Starmer have to be actors. I've actually got Karen Starmer written down here. Some people call him Keith. Some people call him Keith Stalin. Various things. But Karen Starmer, I must say, is a new one on me. Damon has been in touch from Wigan and says, why on earth would anyone extend the one in, one out scheme? This is something else that the government is looking at. We're looking at the one in, one out scheme and saying that apparently Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands may well have a deal with us, because that is something that they're trying to sort out, because obviously it's been such an incredible success and they sent back, what is it, 50 people, 60 people, something like that. Damon in Wigan says, why on earth would anyone extend the one in, one out scheme? It doesn't work. All it will do is bring more people here. I'm ashamed of this government, and the sooner they're gone, the better. And Peter, do you think Britain has a brighter future? Damon, I hope Britain has a brighter future. I'm ever the optimist. I ever want things to be marvellous and wonderful and brilliant, and maybe they will be, and maybe things will get better. What I know over the course of my lifetime is that things have got worse, certainly. I think life has got tougher for people. I think next month, when we have the Chancellor doing the budget, I think income tax is probably going to go up. I think she's going to contradict herself from a year previously. So I hope it does, Damon, but I don't think it will. Molly's been in touch as well and says, good afternoon, Peter. About digital ID, I'm 6 years old and I plan to stay in my job until I retire. I would like to know, if I refuse ID, would I get fined? Otherwise, I don't need it. I don't think you're going to need it at all, Molly. If you stay in the same job, you're 60 now. If you stay till the retirement age, whatever the retirement age is for your job, I think the national retirement age is 67. Well, you're going to be fine. You're not going to need digital ID, we're told by Starmer anyway today, which does seem to be a contradiction. Ross is back with us. And Ross, I think the point you were making there before, you're so cruelly taken off by the technological bugs. Maybe your digital ID didn't work, I don't know, when you were logging into Zoom. Is that the criminals can use this system or exploit the system anyway, Ross?
Well, exactly. I mean, what digital ID does is it sort of creates this sort of one-stop shop for our identity. At the moment, if you want to open a bank account, you're asked to go down to a branch, present a passport, driving licence, a couple of other piece of evidence you live at an address. I mean, if we're just going to use one form of ID, then if criminals can get hold of your phone, then, you know, they've got hold of your ID. So I don't see the argument that it's going to make things secure. I think rather it's going to work in the other direction.
It's a really interesting point, and I do wonder how many people will resist it as well, and essentially whether that's possible. Are employers then going to say, well, I'm sorry, I can't take you on if you don't have a digital ID? Will there be any opt-out of it? Because there doesn't seem to be any manner in which that can happen after 2028 if you get a new job.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So Prime Minister seems to think he can have it both ways. He's still going around assuring us, oh, you know, it's not going to be compulsory. You won't need to do this. You won't need to do that. But then he says, oh, well, you will need it to get a job. So, I mean, the bizarre thing is it seems you're going to be able to claim benefits without a digital ID, but you won't be able to get a job without a digital ID. And it does seem to me there is a sort of possible problem there in trying to persuade people back into the workplace. He might actually persuade them down to the benefit office instead.
Well, I think that's a very good point, Ross. Thank you, and good to get you back on the line. That's Ross Clark there, columnist with The Sun. Lots of people getting in touch about boats as well, small boats, including Margaret in Birmingham, who says, can Starmer not be held to account for this out-of-control boats crisis in front of a select committee, explain his incompetence? But he is today putting Zelensky front and centre when his own country is going down the pan. Yeah, Zelensky was meeting him at Downing Street today. Jenny says, do we have small boats from Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands? So how will we have one in, one out? Well, they're coming across into France, I suppose, Jenny. Maybe it would help the scheme, I don't know. Dan in Hartlepool says, how much do you want to bet that the self-employed will have to have digital ID to complete tax returns, but they aren't compulsory? Remember, yeah, exactly, Dan. I think that's a very, very good point. Tony is in Cardiff in South Wales and has a perspective on the election that has happened, the Senate election. Tony, you're very welcome to the programme. Thanks for your call on 0344 499 1000. What would you like to say today?
It's just a bit of feedback on some of the comments you made along about anybody but reform.
Yeah.
My son lives in Caerphilly, and when you get to knock on the door, and it's been a huge turnout, and the number of people who have actually voted is incredible. But one thing he commented to me was that if it was Labour or Conservative or Plaid, all three of them would say who you're voting for, and if he said we're not quite sure, well, would it be anybody but reform?
Yep.
And it's incredible. But he's a young guy, he's 27, 28. Labour are absolutely finished in South Wales. I can't speak nationally, but in South Wales it's finished. So
and that is a massive reversal in fortune for them, isn't it, Tony? Because they've dominated in Caerphilly, certainly, for 100 years.
Well, you'd follow the votes of your parents and your grandparents as Labour. I was one of those. I'd always vote Labour, regardless of who was in there. Now it's totally opposite. It's reform all the way. But what you will find, the national vote when it comes for MP will be a totally different one to the Senate. In Wales, we're very loyal to people, and the guy who won it, I think it's Peter Whittle, he's from there. He's been a councillor for many, many years.
Yeah, he's stood in, I think, every Senate and Westminster election since something like 1983, I was reading earlier.
So he is getting a lot of the sympathy vote as well. But honestly, it'll be a totally different situation when it comes to voting for local MP. I can see reform actually winning.
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting perspective, Tony. Do you think reform can potentially become the biggest party in the Senate? Can they be the government of the Senate, or will it simply be someone who isn't Labour? Or how do you see it going in a few months' time, Tony?
They'll struggle with the Senate because it's very political and people will vote for local candidates. But when it comes to the actual MP itself, I think Labour will reform will win the majority of the MPs. I think they will struggle with the Senate.
Very interesting. Okay, Tony, listen, thank you. Thanks for your perspective, Tony, there in Cardiff. And thanks to Stephen Millings in Belfast, another great part of the United Kingdom. He says the government squandered $37 billion on a simple track and trace app during COVID, which never worked. Anyone that thinks they have the competence to introduce digital ID needs their head examined. Let's not bring Royal Mail into this, Stephen. It's test and trace was the government one. Everyone always makes that mistake. It's test and trace was the government one. Track and trace is the Royal Mail one. But Stephen, it's a very, very good point. That app did not work very well at at all. We spent a huge amount of money on it, and the government love these big projects, and then they say, oh, well, it's only for a limited thing and it's not that big a deal. Well, how much is it going to cost is a very, very good point. We're going to talk about immigration in a second. Kevin Foster is a former immigration minister, and it's coming up in a minute or two. A one-in, one-out deal with France isn't working particularly well, but we're about to think about one with Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands as well. We'll also talk about the migrant guilty of murdering an asylum hotel worker. He stabbed her with a screwdriver and danced as she lay dying. Grim, grim stuff. We'll talk about that with Kevin Foster in just a minute here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to all the people in touch to say, yes, there are more Muslims in the UK than there are Welsh people. I did ask Mark about whether he meant there were more Muslims than people in Muslims in Wales than Welsh people, but yes. Thank you to everybody who's been in touch about this, mainly on Twitter. In Wales, in the 2021 census, there were 3.1 million people. In the 2021 census, there are 3.9 million Muslims in the whole of the UK. Not in Wales, obviously, that wouldn't work. In the whole of the UK. So I think that's the point Mark was making. I think he got a bit confused. I think I got a bit confused. Just to absolutely clarify, the thrust of what he was saying, what he was trying to say anyway, was right. Yes, there are more Muslims in the UK than there are people in Wales. So that is correct, and I'm very happy to correct that. But I thought he meant in Wales, which was obviously wrong. Thank you to the people who say, love the fact you take so many calls. Yeah, we do. And actually on the weekend shows, we take loads and loads of calls, actually, and voice notes and all the rest of it, all between 10 and 1, both tomorrow and Sunday. Sarah Puchin for half an hour tomorrow between 10 and 1. She is the Reform UK MP who's doing a phone-in with us between 10 and 1. And then on Sunday, I've got the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. If you've got any questions, any ideas about what you want me to ask him, please do get in touch. Thanks. Also, I had another tweet here. Let me see if I can find it. I tried to screenshot them. Yes, Amy, who says, isn't the result of the by-election last night just a taste of what is likely to happen next year with Plaid Cymru and Reform in first and second places in constituencies, and Labour having a dire night and then putting pressure on Starmer's leadership? So there's plenty to discuss there. I want to talk about the immigration picture now with Kevin Foster. The UK now seeking a one-in, one-out deal with Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands. Kevin, thanks for joining me this afternoon. I just wonder, from your position as a former immigration minister, I mean, one-in, one-out was something that the Conservatives wanted at one stage. Do you think it is working? Do you think it can work further, especially if we sign a deal with Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands?
Well, I think many people are wondering just how many boats managed to make it to the UK from Germany. Perhaps they might want to add Switzerland to the list.
Yes.
We had looked
I don't think there are too many boats coming from Switzerland. Maybe on Lake Geneva.
Yeah, that's the joke. I think for this one, they're trying to look for solutions, and we'd look to try and get a returns agreement to France. It would make sense to try and return people to France, but we'd always said we weren't just going to accept the idea that we should take lots of people from the continent in exchange, which is, by the way, what they're now doing with this agreement. And it hasn't been particularly successful with France. We've seen only 42 sent back, and I think it's about 10,000 arrive the other way. And one of those 42 has already returned to the UK. So this isn't just a magic bullet. I can see why they're trying it, but this doesn't strike me as getting to the real core of what they need to do to try and deal with the crisis in the Channel.
It's debatable whether Macron ever had the foot on the gas, but he's certainly taken it off the gas given his internal political problems. The fact he's got rid of his interior minister and so on. We're paying them a huge amount of money, more than £500 million a year, to deal with this problem. Have they just not got any form of desire to deal with it, do you think? Do you think there's any way we can force the French to do that?
I think the problem you've got is what's going on in French politics and the rather fractured nature of the French Fifth Republic at the moment. Whilst you can go and talk to Macron at the Élysée Palace and his ministers in grand buildings, the reality is Macron might be in office, he's not in power. You can look at the French National Assembly. The largest bloc is the sort of left-wing Economic Alliance. Well, it's hard to imagine they're going to want to take tough action on migration. The next biggest bloc is effectively Marine Le Pen and allies. Well, they might be keen to take action on illegal migration and the lawlessness in the Pas de Calais, but they're hardly friends of Emmanuel Macron, and they want him out. And then the third group is the president's own bloc, pretty uninfluential, not able to pass anything on its own. Although, of course, he keeps trying to appoint them as prime minister. So the big issue here is literally the fractured nature of French politics. I think Macron doesn't really have it in his heart to want to take on this issue in the way it needs to be taken on. And actually, if it was going to happen, he would almost certainly need the support of Marine Le Pen to take the sort of measures that would be needed. But we can look at the French government faces exactly the same issues in France as we are, with lawlessness, with the gangs that are behind this, and a need to enforce their own laws and deal with the many people in their country that do not have lawful status, and that's causing an absolute disaster in the Pas de Calais. Yeah, I suspect it'll be the next French president who'll be likely to do that, not Emmanuel Macron.
There's a horrible story today about a migrant guilty of murdering an asylum hotel worker. He stabbed her with a screwdriver and then danced as she lay dying. This is the woman who died, Rhiannon Sky White, 27, was left to bleed on a deserted platform at a railway station in Walsall. She's a mother. She'd been working at the Park Inn by Radisson Hotel, where her killer had been staying. He's a Sudanese national. He claims to be 19, but lots of people think he's older. Had been found guilty of murder following a trial, of course. Wolverhampton Crown Court heard she'd worked at the hotel for about 3 months, helping with things like cleaning and serving food. She's a young mum trying to do her best, trying to have a job and to get some money for her family. And then there was some issue about broken biscuits, apparently, and then he just started staring at her and then attacked her. It is just absolutely horrendous that this had happened. This person should be jailed for life. Should he be jailed for life here, or should he be deported immediately or to serve a sentence elsewhere if that in fact can happen with Sudan? What do you think should happen?
Well, certainly, Peter, your heart goes out to the family involved. As you say, this is just a mum trying to make a bit of money to support her family and gets killed in a brutal manner, and a totally unprovoked manner as well. This man has been looking to game Europe's asylum systems. I think he'd been turned down in Germany before he came here. And as you say, there's debates about his age, because I think it's safe to say he's been dishonest at least once about how old he actually is. I would have absolutely no issue with this man being returned straight to Sudan to serve his sentence in Sudanese custody. Whether that's possible is another matter. And one of the issues we do have to watch in cases like this is ensuring someone is actually punished for their offence. Because what we wouldn't want to do is just someone commit a brutal murder, be thrown out of this country, and then find themselves walking around at home within weeks. And in some nations, we couldn't guarantee that people would actually go on to serve their sentence. But certainly, whatever protection need this man is claiming is absolutely irrelevant. Once we can do so, he should be removed to Sudan and to ideally spend his rest of his life in prison there. And I'm conscious, of course, this brings up all sorts of debates about how, when people have been rejected in other parts of Europe, why on earth we're considering their case here.
That's a very good point, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin Foster there, former Immigration Minister. Thank you for joining me on Talk this afternoon. What do you think of this horrendous case? 0344 499 1000. Elisa's been in touch from Chelmsford and says, great to see you on this fine Friday evening. Thank you, Elisa. Just a thought, it may be a good thing for Reform UK that they were unsuccessful in winning the by-election. They've been making such incredible progress in the polls that they were in danger of getting overconfident. Terry and Slough says, in my opinion, under this useless, incompetent Prime Minister, this country's finances are sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss and will take years to recover from. We're going to talk about a financial issue in a minute. The pay of junior doctors who are out there whinging yet again after the 30% pay increase. They want yet more money. We'll speak to the former NHS Trust Chairman Martin Gower. We'll make sure we get your opinion too. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Nigel is very popular in actual fact. There are more people supporting reform now than there are supporting Labour or the Conservatives. He is exceptionally popular. We have in Keir Starmer the most unpopular Prime Minister since records began, since opinion polling started. This is the most unpopular Prime Minister, and there's a good reason for that. He's incompetent, he's not capable. People have seen in just less than 18 months how bad he is at being Prime Minister.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who's been in touch, including Dan and Kent, who says yesterday's by-election in South Wales is proof that centrist politics is all over, Peter, and to be honest, good riddance. 25 years of politicians trying to please everyone all of the time. It's failed. It's bogged down in bureaucracy and red tape. Left versus right next election. I'm always right, says Dan and Kent. Elaine in Peterborough says, I agree with Ross, the digital ID is a risk. I'm not prepared to take. That was Ross Clark, who we spoke to a bit earlier on, the Sun columnist. Similarly, Elaine says it will be so easy for criminals to get hold of your personal information. They will be able to open bank accounts and take out loans in your name and ruin your credit rating. The thought of this is very concerning, so I am against this. Pete says Starmer should resign now. Labour are finished. And Penny in Essex says, Penny, I haven't heard from you in a while. It's great to hear from you. Good afternoon, Peter. Waitrose are one of the wealthiest supermarkets along with Marks and Spencer's. They've taken advantage of this young autistic lad and should be ashamed. Glad that Asda have offered him a paying job. Well, we're talking to Tom's mother a little bit later on. Frances will be with us, so we'll talk to her and get the full details of what Tom is going to do now. A young autistic man who's been working very, very hard in Waitrose. He asked to be paid for even a couple of hours just to give him some sense of a bit of self-worth. He'd given them 600 hours of free labour on a kind of work experience programme, and they said no. So now Asda have picked him up, and rightly so. Right then, I want to talk about Wes Streeting now and what he is saying in regard to the unions. And actually, I'll be speaking to Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, on Sunday, and that's on my Sunday show, which is obviously on between 10 and 1. I'm on Saturday and Sunday, as you know. So I'll be talking to Wes Streeting on Sunday morning. If there's anything you want me to ask him, do get in touch. One thing I definitely want to ask him about is the junior doctors who say they're going to be on strike again. Now, Martin Gower is a former NHS Trust chairman and joins me now. The strike has been called preposterous. I agree with that word, preposterous. What do you think, Martin? They've already got a 30% pay rise.
Yes, I do agree with it being preposterous, Peter, and thank you for having me on. A couple of things, first of all. The job of a junior doctor isn't great, and the kind of rotation placement system is not all that popular. My older brother is a retired doctor, and it hasn't changed much since he trained, I don't know, 50 or 60 years ago. So I think that the fact that they are shuffled around from place to place, they have to keep on applying, they're pretty unhappy about this. However, they shouldn't be going on strike. I think for doctors, in any case, to be going on strike, the only people who suffer are patients. Many of them are in pain, they're elderly, and they should really look in the mirror and just express how disgusted they should feel with themselves. The union is clearly one of the most militant unions we have in the country, but of course we have the perfect storm, don't we? Because we have a government whose negotiating skills are not actually particularly recognised as being particularly good, and therefore they feel, together with a number of other public sector unions, that at the end of the day, whatever they want, particularly, well, near as damn what they want, they will get. Because we have a weak government with weak negotiating skills. And actually, in the case of healthcare, there is no way, and certainly no other country, where the Chief Minister for Health would be negotiating with junior doctors. I mean, it's quite demeaning that anybody should be doing that from the government. And of course, the problem is the doctors are employed by the state. Find me another country where they're employed by the state, because I don't think there are any. And consequently, we have this ludicrous situation where the 5th largest employer in the world is a soft touch to be beaten over the head by very, very powerful and militant unions.
I'll come back to you in just a second, Martin, but I just want to bring you some news that I've just been handed here. This is an Epping hotel migrant who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl is on the run after he was accidentally released from jail. This is Hadish Kabatsu, who was meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre to be deported, but was mistakenly freed. This is the Sun that has the story. A major operation now underway to find him. Scots scrambling to chase down the dangerous man. David Lammy understood to be furious, working with the police to find the criminal. He was found guilty of touching and trying to kiss the schoolgirl in Epping on the 7th and 8th of July. We remember that case. It was a big, big case, and we talked about it here on this programme. But now a manhunt underway to find Hadish Kabatsu, who was freed by mistake. His arrest originally led to a wave of demonstrations outside the Bell Hotel, where he was staying as an asylum seeker from Ethiopia. The judge at Chelmsford Magistrates Court said it must have been a disgusting and sickening experience for the girl who was wearing school uniform at the time, a 14-year-old girl. This paedophile is on the loose. The authorities have massively screwed up and let him out by mistake. This is the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker who is on the loose because of the incompetence of the prison service and the immigration service, by the look of things. So we will be returning to that story, I would imagine, in just a few minutes' time. But Martin Gower is still with me, former NHS Trust Chairman, talking about this huge issue of militant doctors walking out. I just wonder, in terms of what you're saying there, the unions that have been given so much money, ASLEF, for example, for some of the train drivers in this country, the public sector workers more generally, but specifically the doctors who got 30%. I mean, can they not just read the room on this and realise that the vast majority of people have not got a 30% pay rise in the last year? And what is happening is that the government is being held to ransom by these junior doctors who know that when they withdraw their labour, people die.
Yes, and we, the populace, are being held to ransom. At the end of the day, the victims are not the government. The victims are people who need above all, to have confidence in that service. And that confidence is slipping. It's down. The latest public survey suggests it's around 21% of the people who actually have confidence that they have a health service that will respond to their needs. And it's disgraceful. And I'm sorry, I blame the government, but I also blame this militant union, but we have given them so much power. Powerful unions thrive when there are very large payrolls of public sector employees, which the doctors are.
What should the government do? How should they respond to this? What would your advice be to Wes Streeting?
Well, my advice would be to do everything in power to make sure that they're covered. Forget about statistics. One thing I would very definitely not advise Wes Streeting to do is what he's done already in an article he wrote in one of the newspapers, where he said the only person who benefits is Nigel Farage. Well, this is not a political issue. They went to strike, they struck against the previous government, and they're shown repeatedly their willingness to hold patients who need those services to ransom. This doesn't happen in any other country that I can know, and I'm fairly familiar with what goes on in Europe, for example, with healthcare systems, and it just doesn't happen elsewhere. It is an absolute disgrace, and everybody, all the players involved, should actually sort out what they need to do to stop it. Now, if Wes Streeting needs to say, okay, you go on strike for as long as you like and as often as you like, we have a pretty horrible health service. Let it drift to the private sector. Let's be honest, Peter. A lot of work now is drifting actual delivery, because in health, in the NHS, there's two sides to it. One is the commissioning of services, but the other is the provision of services. And the provision of services is fairly rapidly actually exporting itself gently towards the private sector. For many minor, well, not that minor, but things in orthopedics, certainly in ophthalmology, are now being dealt with within the private sector, and that drift is happening. That's reducing capacity of the NHS because doctors are working more and more part-time in the NHS and part-time in the private sector. He is overseeing, Wes Streeting is overseeing the probable demise of the NHS. And yet my own feeling, having worked there as a chairman for 9 years up until 2020, I kind of feel that unless there is a huge crisis, the NHS will not actually ever be reformed.
I think that's very, very sensible commentary. Thank you for it. Martin Gower there, former NHS Trust Chairman. I'm going to be speaking to the Health Secretary, as I said, on Sunday at around 10:30. Stephen's in East Yorkshire. He's giving me a ring on 0344 499 1000 about digital ID. Stephen, what would you like to say? You're very welcome to the programme.
Oh, nice to speak to you.
It's about, just think about what happened in Spain earlier on this year when the internet went down, the power went down, you know, and then they had all sorts of problems throughout the entire country.
Yeah.
So I think digital ID, if you're not going to be able to get any money from your bank when you do all this, or the mobile.
Well, Keir Starmer says now it's just about proving who you are to get a job. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I was in the back of a black cab a few months ago actually, and I saw a really good little poster about cash. It says, yes, we accept credit cards, but we'd rather take cash. Cash doesn't run out of power. You know, cash doesn't cause problems in the transaction. Cash can't, transaction can't fail. It's always there. And actually, the more reliable things are being thrown out sometimes, Stephen.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had a serious problem this week at work. For 2 days, we've had various systems that had been hacked. And the more you digitalise everything, the more susceptible this is to happening, whether it be just the criminal element or whether it's state-sponsored. You know, in today's political climate, that seems to be happening with greater frequency. I think it's just an absolute nightmare, and it's going to get worse the more they do it. Plus, there's also the issue of control.
Mm-hmm.
What's to stop them if they say, well, hang on, we now control your banking. You can't get the money out this week.
Well, as we know, I mean, they can do that even without digital ID. I mean, Justin Trudeau, the floppy-haired fascist in Canada, for example, with his stupid socks, managed to control the bank accounts of people who wouldn't take the truckers who wouldn't take the vaccines. I mean, that was outrageous.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. It really is the thin end of the wedge, and I think people ought to be very, very careful about this.
Listen, thank you, Stephen. Just speaking of Justin Trudeau, I did see a picture of him recently. He's apparently in a relationship now with the singer Katy Perry, but I didn't really recognise him without the blackface. Frank's in New York and says the release of this migrant cannot be a mistake. Someone has done this deliberately. Heads need to roll, and quickly. This is a big story. We're going to be returning to it with Mark Francois, who's going to be in the studio in just a second. This is the police manhunt underway to find the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker after he was accidentally released from jail. This is Hadish Kabasu, who's meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre to be deported, but he was mistakenly freed. This is the Sun that is reporting this major operation now underway to find him. Cops are scrambling to chase him down. He is a paedophile who attacked a 14-year-old schoolgirl. More on this in just a minute here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. The breaking news this evening is that a police manhunt is underway to find the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker, the paedophile, after he was accidentally released from jail. We think this might be Chelmsford Prison. Hadush Kabatu, meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre to be deported, but he was mistakenly freed. What an absolute fiasco. We'll be talking about that with many of our guests between now and 7 o'clock, including Peter Blexley, who's coming up very shortly. But we'll also speak to Mark Francois, who is the Shadow Defence Minister, who happens to be in the studio to talk about other issues. We'll get a quick reaction from him in a second. We're also talking about Labour in the Senate election in Caerphilly. Their vote has collapsed. It's gone down 34 percentage points, and there's now a Plaid Cymru member of the Welsh Senate there. We'll talk as well about the migrant guilty of murdering an asylum hotel worker. And if you think it's all doom and gloom, in a few minutes' time we're also going to speak to the mother of an autistic worker who wanted to be paid by Waitrose. He'd given lots and lots of time of his own volition. He asked to be paid. Waitrose said no. Well, he's been offered a job by Asda now, so that will certainly put a smile on his face, and indeed ours. We'll speak to his mother in a few minutes' time. Loads to discuss. I want to make sure you get your voice on the air, particularly about this breaking news about the migrant manhunt. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text us 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss this Friday evening here on Talk Drive. Well, some of the detail is really shocking. This manhunt underway to find Hadush Kabatu. He was meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre to be deported, but was mistakenly freed. A major operation now underway to find him. Cops scrambling to chase him down. He was found guilty of touching and trying to kiss a 14-year-old schoolgirl in Epping on the 7th and 8th of July. His arrest led to the wave of demonstrations outside the Bell Hotel. He was staying as an asylum seeker from Ethiopia. Mark Francois MP is the Shadow Defence Minister, also the Conservative for Rayleigh and Wickford. So you're an Essex MP.
Yes.
Mark, are you as shocked as I am by this?
You couldn't make this up. I mean, you couldn't invent it. And it just shows Labour's entire policy in this area is in utter chaos. I mean, this comes, a couple of days after we learnt that, their bonkers 17 in, 1 out policy, which was a gimmick from the start. One of the people that was deported to France under that policy was caught coming back to Britain on a small boat. They were talking about digital mandatory ID cards as a way of stopping the boats. That wouldn't come in till 2029, and I'm completely opposed to it anyway on principle. So it's just one more example, I think, although a remarkable one, of Labour's policy is utter chaos. The truth is, they haven't got a clue how to stop the boats. They're up a third since the election in terms of the numbers coming. Because Labour are so obsessed with the ECHR, they'll never stop them. You've got to leave the ECHR really to do it. So it's just one disaster after another. Maybe that's part of why in that, a by-election last night in a seat which in parliamentary terms, I know it was a Senate seat, Labour have held for 100 years, they got 11% of the vote.
The Conservative vote not much better, 17.3% in 2021, last night 2%. You must be concerned about that.
Well, I appreciate ours went down, but this is not a seat that we've held for a century.
Yeah.
So I just think this shows how incredibly unpopular the government is. And, I think there's now real panic on the Labour backbenches, and I think we may see that reflected in this vote for the deputy leadership on on Saturday. So, you know, I think Labour backbenchers are just getting, and you see this in the Commons, they're just getting more and more frustrated with their own government. And that's even before we've got to what's probably going to be a very unpopular budget on the 26th of November.
Mark and I are obviously incredibly excited about who the next Deputy Leader of the Labour Party will be. We'll bring you that news live on my show tomorrow morning between 10 and 1, so I'm sure you'll barely be able to sleep at it tonight, Mark, to work out whether it's Lucy Powell or Bridget Phillipson, but we will bring you that result during the show between 10 and 1 tomorrow. Let me speak about another huge issue this week. It's one you've been intimately involved with. Soldier F had his trial he's had his trial for quite a while now, but he's been found not guilty on 7 counts. This is a soldier who was there on Bloody Sunday 1972, 53 years ago in Northern Ireland, and one of a number of veterans who have been questioned by police. Some of them have been charged, some of them have gone to trial. The judge was very critical of the evidence put forward in this case.
Yes, he was. So Judge Patrick Lynch, KC, a very experienced judge, and his summing up lasted a couple of hours. I mean, the trial lasted a number of weeks, and the judge gave a very, very detailed summing up of the evidence and explained why he'd come to the conclusion that he did. Obviously aware of all the sensitivities around this matter. And he said that the evidence, his words, fell well short of the standard required for successful prosecution. So I do hope that, one, that will draw a line under this case, and secondly, and more broadly, that the government will now pause and reflect on this, and as a result they will discontinue their attempts to repeal our Legacy Act of 2023, which was an attempt to draw a line under many of these very difficult issues of the past.
The thing was with that piece of legislation, though, that it drew a line for soldiers and also terrorists as well. And many people feel that if there is evidence of things that have happened previously, you know, if something had happened to my family a long time ago, I'd still want justice even if it was many decades on. So what happens? I mean, we talked about the standard required. It's unlikely that evidence of the standard required to convict people will go forward. But if you have someone, unlike the vast majority of the 300,000 people who served in uniform in Northern Ireland in the Troubles, there were a small number, who fell short. What should happen to them if there is evidence against them?
Well, there are several points to make. It's a very serious question, so if I may. The first point is, and I think this case shows it very well, it is, you know, the evidential difficulty of bringing a prosecution 53 years after the event in question. The prosecution was mainly based on the statements of 2 other soldiers who were there, one of whom is now dead, and so can't be cross-examined. So whether you're going after a terrorist or whether you're going after a soldier, there are just very practical difficulties in trying to get a prosecution. Now, the reason that the legislation was written in the way that it was based, in essence, on the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And so it had to apply, if you like, to both sides. If it had only applied to veterans, there would be many people who would never have accepted it. And what the legislation says, and this is important, is that it offered a conditional amnesty, not a blanket amnesty, so that if you investigated a fatality and the person you were ultimately investigated cooperated with the commission, and the commission, it was their decision, judged that person had fully cooperated and tried to tell the truth, they could then in effect grant them immunity from prosecution. So it was never a blanket immunity, it was conditional immunity. Now, interestingly, since yesterday, some prominent Labour figures have now come out and said the government should halt this process. So Graham Stringer, very well respected veteran Labour MP for Blackley, he said to continue this against one side makes no sense. Lord Glassman of Blue Labour, we must reverse it as soon as possible. In other words, Labour's attempt to get rid of the Act. Lord West, a former Labour Security Minister, we shouldn't be doing it. So even on the Labour side now, there were prominent people coming out urging the government to drop this and effectively to move on.
And a big point in all of this, of course, is that the army keeps records, whereas the terrorists do not. So you do have a very unbalanced system, or at least it feels that way to a lot of people.
And another reason the veterans feel so angry is because, as we now know famously after the Good Friday Agreement, around 300 alleged terrorists were issued with so-called letters of comfort by the Blair government, and of course none of the veterans were ever given those. Now the governments are trying to say that the reason they want to repeal the Legacy Act is so they can go after the IRA. I mean, that has been their argument. I don't think anyone really believes that. And I spoke this morning to Paul Young of the Northern Ireland Veterans Movement. He said, we see that for the lie that it is. And the government trying to pretend that this is all about going after terrorists who somehow got away, when it was Labour that gave them all the letters of comfort in the first place. I'm here to tell you the veterans are absolutely furious. So my honest advice to Hilary Benn would be...
Who's the Northern Ireland Secretary?
Sorry, yes, who is driving their attempt to repeal the Legacy Act, would be look at what has just happened, pause, reflect, think carefully, and then drop this. Take away the sword of Damocles above the heads of our veterans, many of whom are now in the 70s and 80s, and let them live out their lives in peace. Not least, Peter, because if it hadn't have been for those 300,000 soldiers, the vast majority of whom served loyally and bravely, we wouldn't have a Good Friday Agreement in the first place.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I worked at the Northern Ireland office as a special advisor, as you know, Mark, and this, apart from Brexit, was probably the biggest and trickiest issue, actually. 27 years on from the Belfast Agreement, it's still a very big issue. We have a lot of military families and veterans and serving officers who watch and listen to these programmes, and we have a huge respect for them and the work they do. We're going to show our respect, of course, by wearing a poppy. I haven't had a chance to buy one yet, but as soon as I do, I will get one. Can you just tell me about your poppy? For those who are listening, it looks really interesting, and it's got a sort of a star on it as well. What's the significance?
It's what's sometimes called a regimental poppy. So you see a number of them now. So it's a poppy with all that signifies. But I served in the Royal Anglian Regiment, TA, not regular, during the Cold War, when the Berlin Wall was still up. So it's a poppy with my regimental emblem in the middle of it, and you see a lot of them now. Particularly veterans tend to wear them a lot, so they're both wearing a poppy and, as it were, their old cap badge.
Great stuff. Well, we will, of course, bring you full coverage on the on Remembrance Sunday, and we will be wearing our poppies very, very soon. Now, Zelensky is speaking in central London at a press conference at the moment. I think we can take maybe a little bit of that now. We can just see what he is. Can we hear what he is saying, what Zelensky is saying? Let's just bring that up.
All the support and your readiness to keep helping. And today, all the partners confirmed that next year they will continue to support Ukraine, our country, our resilience, especially the financial support, which is crucial. And today, the new Prime Minister of Japan joins the coalition for the first time, and all the signals are clear. Thank you. We all see the challenges these days, and the Russians are carrying out a campaign of terror against our energy system, and they really want to make the winter cold a tool of torment and pressure on Ukraine, our people, and on our defense. And Russia's goal hasn't changed. They want to break us, want to break Ukraine, and they are doing everything to achieve it. So that's why our defense means everything that truly stops Russia.
That is Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine, speaking in central London, press conference there. The coalition of the willing. He mentioned the new Japanese Prime Minister, Sainae Taichi, is there as well. First woman who is has been elected Prime Minister of Japan. What do you make of what he was saying there? A lot of what Zelensky has been saying in the last few weeks is really about gratitude, talking about the gratitude to the coalition of the willing, to other nations that are helping Ukraine. Mark, from your perspective as Shadow Defence Minister, what do you think?
Well, it's good that President Zelensky says that. In Britain, we started training Ukrainian soldiers in 2014 under what was then called Operation Orbital. That was after the first Russian invasion. That's when they captured Crimea. And the Ukrainians could see what was coming, and we started to train their Ukrainian soldiers 11 years ago. And it's as well that we did, because in 2022, when they launched the full-scale invasion, they tried to overrun Kyiv. And your viewers may remember some of those clips of those anti-tank ambushes, you know, where the tank at the front went up and the tank at the back, and then you took out everything in the middle in 60 seconds. We trained the Ukrainians to do that, and they did that with NLAW weapons built in Britain. So it's gratifying in a way that President Zelensky should say thank you. What should happen now? We should increase the sanctions on Russia. It's good that President Trump is now doing that. Putin has had multiple opportunities to call a ceasefire, to stop his advance. He won't. We need to call his bluff. We need to realise he's not a Boy Scout, he's a former KGB colonel, he's a murderer. Remember, they've targeted children's hospitals in Ukraine with highly accurate cruise missiles. He knows what he's doing. So we need to stand up to him, because if we don't stop him in Ukraine, we'll have to stop him in Poland. And if we don't stop him in Poland or the Baltic states, then you're into something that starts to look like World War III. So basically, we should back Zelensky to the hilt, which is what the Conservative Party has done. Boris was straight to Kyiv in 2022 before anyone else. And we need to we need to help those people fight for themselves, because ultimately they're fighting for us and they're fighting for the democratic values that we all believe in. So we need to back this man to the hilt.
Mark, thank you. That's Mark Francois there. He is Conservative MP for Raleigh and Wickford, and also Shadow Defence Minister. Covered a range of topics today. Zelensky still speaking at that press conference for the Coalition of the Willing. We'll talk more about that as the show goes on. We'll also talk about this very shocking story about the paedophile who has been released by mistake, we think, from Chelmsford prison. This is a manhunt underway to find the Epping Hotel, the Bell Hotel migrant sex offender. He was accidentally released from jail Hadish Kabatu, meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre to be deported, but was mistakenly freed. Loads of people getting in touch, including Taff and Dover. He says, regarding the escaped immigrant sex offender, there will be an inquiry and then the usual lessons will be learned and no one will be sacked. Another person's contacted me with O and the second word beginning with S. Martin in Gillingham says, great show as always, so many topics you're covering, just unbelievable. The total incompetence of the government and now the so-called security services, the Teletubbies, Wombles or Clangers would do a far better job, says Martin. We're going to talk about that very soon. We're also going to talk next about a lovely story, something that'll put a smile on your face. This is a young man, autistic guy, great fella called Tom Boyd. His mother's going to talk to us. She spoke to me on Sunday about Tom, about how he volunteered 600 hours of his time at Waitrose. Could he be paid? No, says Waitrose. Well, Asda have picked him up. They've got a very good worker on their hands. Francis, coming up next, we'll get your reaction as well to all the stories we're covering today, including that escaped paedophile. Stay with us, 0344 499 1000.
I think rather than just pick one person, there might be some new law or rule to do with letters patent that's brought in. For example, if you're not working as a member of the royal family, you don't have them. There could be something they could be working on behind the scenes, which could therefore see, even if he's not found guilty or anything, it could just be the way forward. But remember, William wants to make the royal family smaller, and I think he would be behind something like that, definitely, of making the royal family not only smaller, but also limiting who can call themselves HRH.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sharon in South Staffordshire says, evening Peter, evening Sharon, you can't even make this stuff up about that Ethiopian getting wrongly released instead of deported. No wonder we don't get great comedies like Fawlty Towers or Phoenix Nights on TV anymore. We simply have the news. However, whoever released this fella needs sacking immediately. Total incompetence, says Sharon. Dawn in Chelmsford, which is Chelmsford Prison, is where we think this person's been released from, this paedophile's been released from incorrectly. I saw a police helicopter over Chelmsford earlier. Why are the authorities so incompetent? Just another chapter of Labour's migrant crisis. There are lots of people who want to talk about this. We will make sure that we get them on air very soon. This is the migrant manhunt, the Epping Hotel paedophile, a migrant who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl in school uniform. He's on the run after he was accidentally released from jail. Yes, really, that is currently happening. Let's put a smile on our face because there's so much doom and gloom around today. We did a story on Sunday. We spoke to a brilliant woman called Frances Boyd. She's a very determined and conscientious mother who is the mother of her 28-year-old son, Tom. Now, Tom is autistic and he has been working unpaid for about 4 years with a support worker at Waitrose, putting in a lot of free hours, doing the job really well. Loads of people giving him lots and lots of compliments for his hard work, stacking the shelves and doing what needs to be done in Waitrose. Then, quite reasonably, I think, Frances, on Tom's behalf, said, well, maybe you could give him a few quid for it. They had given him some money, but maybe he could be paid even for a couple of hours, 2, 3, 4 hours, just paid the minimum wage for it. Waitrose said no, ended his placement there as a result of all of that. It all sort of went back and forwards. It was a very, very difficult thing. Well, the last 4 or 5 days have been very, very busy for Frances since she put that Facebook post up that we give her a ring and got her on the show about. And now Asda have offered him 2 5-hour paid shifts a week. Well, let's talk to Frances now, Frances Boyd, the mother of Tom Boyd. Frances, you're very welcome to the programme. A lot has happened since we last spoke. Talk me through it.
It certainly has. It's amazing. Honestly, it felt like Christmas morning yesterday when we got the call from Asda. They had reached out with an email and said they would like to offer something, and then she rang. The lady very kindly rang and gave us some more detail. It was just overwhelming, really. I couldn't believe it. So it was brilliant.
And is there an Asda near you? Is this all going to work logistically and so on?
Yeah, it's literally, again, walking distance. It's just about 500-600 yards further down from Waitrose.
Perfect. Okay. So what about Waitrose? What have they said? Have they been in touch at all over the last few days since this became a big story?
Yeah, we received emails from the local branch apologising and from the head office apologising, and we did, myself and one of Tom's support workers who was present at the meeting when he was told he couldn't, there was no job. We had a meeting with them last night and they were very apologetic at head office. Still looking into it, so they're still reviewing and have an independent person looking into what's gone on and hope to give us more information. And we, are also offering paid work to Tom now. Want to offer him something, want him to come back, want to offer him some paid work. So
Waitrose may well offer him some paid work. What do you think Tom would rather do? Would he rather keep doing what he's been doing previously? Will he go to Asda? I mean, you've got sort of a couple of options here sounding as if they may well be on the cards.
They do, and I don't think that we could say no to either. And next week we're going to have a meeting, and because of Tom's lack of capacity, and I could say yes, send him back, but if he had that choice and he could make that decision himself, which he's not able to, I'm not sure he would. So we have to have a meeting, and we always do this about anything that's to do with health or education or for his own benefit. We have a meeting and we'll discuss it and put it to a best interest decision. So we'll weigh up every aspect of everything because, he knows Waitrose. He's been there for so long. He knows everybody. He knows the structure. So there's all that behind it. But also we have to think about, how it will all work for him. So we haven't said yes and we haven't said no. I told them that we needed time to consider everything, and they were very kind and said, take as long as you need. To do that. So that was great.
I could really feel the huge frustration coming through. You're brilliant and very well argued and very calm, but nonetheless factual, and the frustration was coming through that Facebook post. I could tell when someone sent it to me, one of our viewers and listeners sent it to me, and I knew that I had to have you on, I had to talk to you on Sunday, and I'm delighted you came on. Did you imagine as you were writing it the huge media coverage, the fact that so many people would rally to your cause, and the fact that, okay, there are lots of things to consider, as you correctly say, but nonetheless there looks 99.9% certain there's going to be a really good outcome for Tom here?
Yeah, and I think when I put it out there, because I felt something needed to be said, but I never in my wildest dreams imagined that this happened, that it grew and blew up to. I mean, it's just been crazy here. People asking me to come on to all sorts of chat shows, etc., to speak about it. And I have tried to get my story out there. I felt, and without sensationalizing it. And what we want to come from this, is that Tom is a volunteer, and that was a massive opportunity. And I would never say don't volunteer. I think you have to have that because, and I said this to Waitrose, I didn't want that to be something that they didn't continue to do, because without that opportunity, he wouldn't have had that chance to develop those skills, be out there in his local community, and have a feeling of a sense of worth, and that. But having behind that, the problem is young people with autism. If they're volunteering, they're not covered by the Equality Act. So there aren't any rights.
It's really interesting you mentioned that, actually, because the changes in national insurance, the national policy, and so on. I know from someone I was chatting to recently, there's someone who set up placements. A lot of them had to end as a result of some of those changes. I just wonder. I mean, how much of this does Tom understand? Is he excited? Does he know that he may well go back? I mean, how can you explain this to him with someone that has his condition?
Again, it's just been so busy this week and everything's happening at such a speed. And, even today I've tried to just sit back and just life to be a little bit back to normal. Although it's been a week, it's been very, very tiring. And we haven't actually approached him. But I haven't watched myself on any interviews and certainly anything that's come across on TV. But my husband and my older son were watching it in the living room and Tom walked in and saw himself sort of, I'm on TV. So he was really excited. And he doesn't understand. He's blissfully unaware and has been, as I said to you before.
And you do have to protect him from all of this as well.
I absolutely do. Yeah.
Just one final question, Francis. I have a contract and a pay negotiation coming up in a couple of months. Can I book you in just to fight my corner? Would that be all right? I'll give you a shout. Joking aside, Francis, well done. Very well done. And when things are sorted out and when things are completely, locked in and Tom's back to work, maybe we'll have another chat and see how he's getting on, if that's okay with you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. And thanks for your support. And thanks to everybody out there in the community that supported us and, helped to raise this, because without them, this wouldn't have happened.
Great stuff. Well, well done, Francis. That's Francis Boyd, Tom Boyd's mother, and it's really looking up for them. On the main story, the breaking news about the migrant manhunt, the Epping Hotel paedophile who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl. He's on the run. Nigel Farage has posted on Twitter, the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker has been accidentally freed rather than deported. He is now walking the streets of Essex. Britain is broken, says Nigel Farage. Loads of people getting in touch about this, including Herbie in Harrow. Herbie, thanks for your patience. What would you like to say about this?
know what, Peter? I can't believe that news. I really can't. Are these people that stupid to allow this man to have gone free? I would ask a question, Peter. How comes he got released free as he has come? You know, somebody's got to be accountable for this. It can't just happen like that. You don't just free a man, you know.
It's a monumental screw-up. I used to work in the Ministry of Justice. This is the kind of stuff you had nightmares about this absolutely monumental screw-up, and the fact that he's now wandering the streets of Essex, the paedophile on the loose.
So who else is now going to be another victim, I wonder? Who's going to be the next victim? Another young person?
Let's hope they get him quickly, Herbie.
Somebody needs to be made accountable.
You're absolutely right. Let's hope they get him quickly, Herbie. Thank you very much. Mick is in Bromley and has some thoughts on this. Mick, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, yeah, I just looking at this guy that's been let out. This isn't a mistake. People don't make mistakes. This has gone for about 5 or 6 people to let this guy out. So we don't want to hear this guy's been accidentally released. We want to hear this guy.
They didn't do it deliberately, though, Mick, did they? I mean, it was a screw-up. It was incompetence.
So it's not an accident. This has gone through 5 or 6 people. They know this guy's a top priority of all the trouble it's caused. I want to hear this guy's been released and 2 policemen have been sacked over it. I don't want to hear all this stuff. This is like the usual 2-tier policing. They don't seem to give a monkey's what's going on in this country with people. And I'm telling you, the way things are going, you're going to see riots like you've never seen before.
Well, I certainly hope not. Mick...
No, it's guaranteed. It's going to, because nothing is getting done. People, I'm listening to them all the time. I was on the march the other week. People are sick to death of it, and they're starting to realise that there is no such thing as a peaceful protest. It doesn't work. People are now getting to have enough of it.
All right,
and these sort of mistakes you're hearing all the time now, and no one gets held up responsible.
Okay, well, Mick, I'm not going to condone any violent action whatsoever. I'm sure you wouldn't either. That's Mick in Bromley there, and I'm sure that if there are protests, they should be entirely peaceful and within the law to make sure that the point is made, but made legally. We have a voice note from Dale, who has been in touch about the paedophile on the loose.
I've actually just stopped laughing about this migrant manhunt. Epping Hotel migrant on the run after he was accidentally released from jail. It's disgusting, like he needs to be caught and put back inside, but it's laughable. You know, is it maybe now a case that they're doing 1 in, 1 out for prisons? Maybe that's why he's gone?
I mean, Dale, it's absurd, isn't it? We'll get some common sense coming on the way. We've scrambled Blexley. He'll be with us in a couple of minutes. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Loads of reaction to this news this afternoon. Loads of reaction to this news about the paedophile on the loose in Essex. This is the Bell Hotel migrant. He sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, sentenced to prison. Guess what? They've let him out by mistake. Frank in New York says the release of this migrant cannot be a mistake. Someone has done this deliberately. Heads need to roll, and quickly. Jane says the duty of government is to protect their own citizens. They have failed. They need to go today. Leslie says, one in, one out, one back in, one arrested and then jailed and released by mistake. Labour are not fit to run a raffle, never mind the country. Nigel Farage says the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker has been accidentally freed rather than deported. He's now walking the streets of Essex. Britain is broken. Peter Blexley, former Metropolitan Police detective and our crime commentator, with us now. Peter, what a farce.
Indeed, and I echo the thoughts of so many of your contributors who have been messaging in about this appalling situation. But I guess this is what you get when you've got David Lammy for a Justice Minister, Shabana Mahmood as a Home Secretary, and remember, it was her who put forward the early release scheme. And what I suspect has happened is that this prisoner has been probably put in with a batch of prisoners who were due for early release. That's what I suspect has happened. He's been mistakenly lined up for early release. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, it's yet another stain upon this great nation. It's yet another incident that stems from illegal, uncontrolled migration, and people are just about at the end of their tether of the appalling way this country is being mismanaged.
A major operation now underway to find him. Police officers scrambling to chase him down. What will they be doing? How will this be dealt with internally in terms of the police? This manhunt, we've heard from one of our listeners, Dawn in Chelmsford, that there's a helicopter in the air. From the police's perspective, how do you track down someone like this? Where do you start? What do you do?
Yeah, and as nightfall comes, that helicopter will be equipped with thermal imaging cameras so it can pick up the movement of a body in the dark. They will initially, I would have imagined, have picked up CCTV from the prison to see a direction of travel, to see which way he went. And then if CCTV coverage then drops off, then it's a bit more of a boots on the ground, traditional kind of policing thing, unless, of course, they think he had a device with him. Now, if he was released and returned his goods, for example, his possessions, and amongst them was a charged mobile phone, then they could very hurriedly get an authority to track that, for example. But we'll have to see. It's a huge, huge embarrassment. They'll be throwing as many resources as they can muster at it. There'll be dogs out there following the trail. There'll be drones as well as a helicopter, because it is a huge, huge embarrassment, not only for the government, the prison service, but for us, the public. It's embarrassing to Britain.
It is embarrassing to Britain. What would your advice be to the people of Essex who may be out and about in Chelmsford if they come across this scumbag?
Well, first of all, keep your daughters firmly at home. Do not let them out on the streets. This man is a dangerous sexual predator. And if you see him, pick up the phone, dial 999 immediately. If you can keep him under observation safely without putting yourself at risk, then kindly do that.
From the position, I mean, given what he has actually been found guilty of, he was in contact with other people, the Category B jail, apparently. I mean, we just look at what he's been convicted of, this disgusting and sickening experience, as the judge said it. The victim said in a statement, every time I go out with my friends, I'm checking over my shoulder. She must be even more traumatised, and her family as well, when this news has come out, thinking this person was in jail and was due to be deported very soon.
It is such an insult to those people, to that poor victim and her family. A child, remember, a child was assaulted here by this person who shouldn't even be in the country, let alone on the streets, sexually assaulting children. It's utterly ridiculous. This migrant crisis is so appalling, as only another 300 odd came in the other day on more dinghies. They're coming in day after day in record numbers. It's so embarrassing that no government will get a grip and put paid to this. We are deliberately allowing people into this country who are a menace, who are dangerous, who are sexual offenders, who are joining the illegal tobacco industry, for example. And all the arrests prove that and back me up. It's ludicrous. Somebody has got to get a grip on this before the disquiet that is running through the nation spills out onto the street.
Peter, thank you. Peter Blexley, our crime commentator, former Metropolitan Police detective. Loads to discuss. Lots of people getting in touch. John in Cumbria has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. John, thank you for your call. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. Brilliant show again.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I've got to say basically, I suppose, relates a little bit to what you've just been talking about with Peter. But initially, my call was about the poor woman who was stabbed by that Sudanese guy.
Yeah.
And there are general calls for him, to be deported and everything. So I'm a bit of a lone voice there, to be honest, because I believe that if they're at the top end of our offending scale, whether it be sexual offences or murder, or even grievous bodily harm for that matter, they should serve their sentence in the UK, because they won't get an easy ride here, but at least we'll guarantee they're locked up.
John, I think I agree with you, actually, and I think we're both against the main opinion of the viewers and listeners to talk, but I think we agree, because my worry is if someone, let's say for the sake of argument, this guy who is, I think he's Nigerian, he is someone who, if he is then, sorry, Ethiopia apparently, apologies. If he is sent back to Ethiopia, what is the guarantee that he would be in jail for the next 25 years or the next 10 years or however long he's been sentenced to? And what is the guarantee that those authorities won't say, we'll keep him in for 6 months and we'll see where we are, but actually we need the prison space, out he goes. Whereas, yes, it's a cost to the taxpayer, but nonetheless, I think it should happen in this country, John. It's also, as you say, guaranteed they're locked up. Well, the farce of all this is that there doesn't appear to be a guarantee, because people keep making these huge mistakes and letting people out.
Well, that's right. I mean, there was some talk about this guy being deported, wasn't there? So I don't know what part of the system that he was in, but I kind of think if he was locked up in jail, guaranteed to serve a sentence, then he probably wouldn't have got away as he has done. I don't know. I might be speaking.
No. I think you're right. I mean, I think from what appears to have happened here, this was a movement from perhaps Chelmsford Prison to a detention centre, but there was some kind of screw up here anyway, and then he was let out. John, listen, thanks for your thoughts. I appreciate them. Thanks for joining me today. Another person in touch saying, you want common sense on this escapee? Don't ask Labour. Alison says, as a cop, I was told there's no such thing as an accident. It comes down to personal error or a deliberate action. If a cop lost a prisoner, their feet did not touch the ground, and sackings did happen. Lots of people as well talking about the other case. This is another migrant, Sudanese migrant, and someone who's trying to help him. Someone who was in one of those hotels was stabbed, and Jill in Liverpool says, my heart bleeds for that poor lady's family that was stabbed to death by the migrant. I would go to my grave fighting, ensuring Starmer is held to ransom if this was my daughter. The family did say Starmer has blood on his hands. Those are their words. He's allowing these unvetted men to walk our streets and rape and murder our own. He's running this country and is responsible. These men should be detained and not allowed to walk our streets unless vetted. This man needs to be held responsible. And now we're told an immigrant is on the run after sexually assaulting a young girl. It's ridiculous, and I'm petrified for my own children going out, scared to even walk the dog now on my own. It's down to this government. It's down to Starmer. I'm so angry I always want to cry with what is happening to our amazing country. Jill, I'm so sorry to hear you're going through such distress. There are loads of people feel the same way. In all of this, there are really real worries about this. We will talk more about that story very, very soon, but we will get the sport next as well. But I just want to hear a voice note just before we go to the break from Joe on the release of this paedophile.
Hi, Peter. Welcome to Labour's new deportation policy. Open the door, have a good day. It's unbelievable. What a joke.
Joe, it's no laughing matter, but it is a horrendous one. We'll talk more about that. And Vanessa Frake, former prison governor, will be with us in a few minutes' time. That's after we get the sport from Dean Scoggins of The Sun. We'll do that after the break. Stay with us here on Talk.
I think rather than just pick one person, there might be some new law or rule to do with letters patent that's brought in. For example, if you're not working as a member of the royal family, you don't have them. There could be something they could be working on behind the scenes, which could therefore see, even if you've not found guilt or anything, it could just be the way forward. But remember, William wants to make the royal family smaller, and I think he would be behind something like that, definitely, of making the royal family not only smaller, but also limiting who can call themselves HRH.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Do you know what? We've decided to drop the sport because this is such a big story. We're going to give you full coverage of this. The Epping Hotel migrant who sexually assaulted a girl, the 14-year-old girl, the paedophile who sexually assaulted her. His name is Hadush Kabatu. He's on the run after he was accidentally released from jail. This manhunt is underway. He was at the Epping Hotel, the Bell Hotel. There were huge protests there, peaceful protests mostly, about that. He was then convicted, he was put in jail, and at the point where he was being moved from jail, we think it's Chelmsford Prison, moving him towards a detention centre, he was released by mistake. This is massively embarrassing. The Justice Secretary David Lammy is said to be furious about it. A major operation underway. We got some of the details of what will be happening. We've got people in Chelmsford who've been telling us they've seen police helicopters and so on. Kabatu was found guilty of touching and trying to kiss a 14-year-old schoolgirl in Epping near the Bell Hotel on the 7th and 8th of July. He was there. This led to a wave of demonstrations outside the Bell Hotel. He was staying an asylum seeker from Ethiopia. A range of guests, including Vanessa Frake, who is a former prison governor, coming up. A prison service officer has been removed from duty. We're being told the Breaking Line prison service officer removed from duty after the convicted sex offender paedophile Hadush Kabatu, who sparked protests in Epping, was accidentally released from jail. It's understood a prison officer has been removed from duties. Clearly, this is a very, very significant screw-up. There is a paedophile on the loose in Essex. Jill in Cornwall has some thoughts on this. Jill has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Jill, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say about this absolute farce?
Hi, Peter. Well, for goodness sake, how incompetent can we honestly have within the police force, the justice system? And David Lammy's got a damn cheek, he has, because at the moment this government is releasing sex offenders from prison anyway. So if this chap had only sat in the car a bit longer, maybe he would have been out before breaking the law again. Do you know, I cannot believe that.
It's comical and it's tragic as well, Jill, and it's just a farce. It's an absolute farce.
Well, it's awful to think that this particular, I mean, we've got so much in the news at the moment to do with sex offenders and paedophiles and goodness knows what, and now we've just released one into the public.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's a massive screw up, Jill. Thanks for your call. Prison officer has been removed from duties after Kabatu has been released this Ethiopian paedophile on the loose in Essex. What a complete and utter farce. Will Geddes is with us, the security expert. Will, what on earth could have happened here?
I don't even know where to start with this, Peter. This is like the worst nightmares come true. I mean, firstly, so many of these individuals have come into the country, and I don't believe they've been fully documented or stamped in such a way that if they do abscond, if they do disappear, if they go back out into circulation and are uncontrolled, there's some serious questions to be asked as to how they could potentially relocate them. And there's every good chance that this individual probably made friends on his way over, has made friends within various communities who may aid and abet in hiding him.
Yeah, and the prison service are saying they're working to return the offender to custody. That is a euphemism for we don't know where he is. We don't know where this paedophile is. He's somewhere in Essex, probably, but we don't really know, Will. I mean, it's beyond a farce.
It's beyond comprehension, Peter. I mean, this is the worst nightmare. I mean, people's tensions and emotions are running exceptionally high. We've seen this certainly in Ireland in the last few days, in the fact that, you know, individuals are not happy. And we are having these cases of individuals that are directly correlated to these immigrant hotels, involved and suspected and being investigated and convicted, as we were in this case, of sexual abuse or sexual crimes or other crimes against local communities. And you can understand why these local communities, Peter, are standing up and they're saying, we don't want them in our communities. And to be honest, this is a quick fix solution by the government that has been so ill thought out that we're now seeing, or they will be now seeing, the price they're paying for doing so.
And they're just three of the stories that we've been covering today before this has broken. Asylum seeker made bomb threats at a killer migrants hotel, harassing young women. We hear about this dreadful story of this 27-year-old woman who was killed by a migrant in a vicious and frenzied attack at a deserted rail station. The Sudanese national following her from the hotel where he was staying, stabbing her 23 times with a screwdriver. Now we've got a paedophile on the loose. The police and the prison service do not know where he is. I mean, how secure is this? How secure is this system, especially when you've got loads of people being let out of prison because we've run out of capacity because the Conservatives didn't build enough, Labour haven't built enough in the last 16 months. I mean, we're letting people out, willy-nilly, and clearly this guy has in some way slipped through the net.
Absolutely, Peter. I mean, and firstly, one of the biggest concerns that we've got, I mean, every single thing that you've just said is just common sense and is everything that we feared was going to happen. And we have a situation where we have men of, males of fighting age who are arriving in this country. A vast majority of them are males. They're not women. They're not children. And these individuals are being let loose into communities which they're not used to, whether that be culturally or otherwise. These are individuals that are bringing their inherent. And I'm not trying to be racist here, Peter. At the end of the day, I think anybody who ultimately deserves asylum, wants asylum, and it can be accounted for. I mean, the Taliban are charging approximately £50 right now for a letter which is on official Taliban-headed writing paper saying Peter Cardwell is at risk and we are going to prosecute him, which you could then take, Peter, and
say I'm under threat from the Taliban. Well, thank you. We'll leave it there because we've got a statement now from the prison service. A prison service spokesperson, maybe it's a man, maybe it's a woman, maybe they don't know. We are urgently working with police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at HMP Chelmsford. So it is Chelmsford Nick. Public protection is our top priority, and we have launched an investigation into this incident. Well done you. What would have been even better is if you hadn't released this paedophile in the first place. It is understood a prison service officer has been removed from duties while the investigation is ongoing. Hold on, you're the prison service and the spokesman doesn't know whether this person has been released, this person has been suspended for duties or not. It is understood a prison service officer has been removed from duties. Well, has this person been removed? Has this prison officer been removed from duties or has he not? Why do you not know? Oh yeah, you don't know where a dangerous paedophile who assaulted a 14-year-old is either. What an absolute farce. This is Britain in 2025. We're going to bring you full coverage in the next hour. Vanessa Frake, the prison governor, is coming up after the news. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is absolutely beyond a farce what I am telling you now. This is Talk Drive. It's just gone 6 o'clock, and here we are on the 24th of October, and a paedophile who assaulted a 14-year-old. He's an asylum seeker. He was at the Bell Hotel in Epping. Well, he's on the loose, and the police and the prison service don't know where he is. Yes, that is what is happening this evening. It's getting dark outside. They're going to lose him even more than they have already. Some sort of error was made. A prison officer apparently suspended, although the prison service don't seem to know whether that's actually happened or not. Has the guy been suspended or has he not? And now we have this scumbag paedophile, Hadish Kabatu, who is on the loose in Essex. It is an absolute farce. It's our one story we'll be covering right through to 7 o'clock when Samara Gill will be here. So much to talk about. Get your call in 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute, please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Got a former prison governor lined up to talk to you and talk us through this in just a second. So stay with us here on Talk Drive. There's so many people contacting us. I want to talk to Vanessa Freck in just a second, but let me just read out a couple of what our viewers and listeners are saying. Jane says, the Prime Minister should stop meeting Zelensky every 5 minutes and start looking after his own citizens. Bring MPs back tomorrow. Tell Parliament this is a national security emergency. We've got to get to grips with protecting our borders. Maggie in Cheshire, the escaper has his phone with him. Locate him via that possibly. Knowing how daft we are, assume he's been given some money, a bag of warm clothes, a map and a charged mobile. Angela said this early release prisoner mistake is unbelievable. All the violent stories on your show are disturbing. The UK has our own criminals without importing illegal people to make matters far worse. This escape has happened on the same day as another person, another asylum seeker, has been found guilty of stabbing a woman with a screwdriver 23 times. This is another asylum seeker, a Sudanese national, who followed a woman who worked in the hotel that he was staying in. He'd had some argument with her about broken biscuits, and then he stabbed her 23 times. The prison service says we are urgently working with the police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at HMP Chelmsford. Public protection is our top priority. We've launched an investigation into this incident. The Justice Secretary, David Lammy, says he's appalled at the wrongful release of Hadish Kabatu, adding the convicted sex attacker must be deported for his crimes, not on our streets. Well, it's under your watch, mate. You are the Lord Chancellor. You are the Secretary of State for Justice, and your officials, your prison officers, have let this guy out. A prison officer has apparently been suspended, but the prison service don't even know whether he's been suspended or not. What an absolute farce. Vanessa Freck is Reform UK's Justice Advisor and a former prison governor herself. Vanessa, I worked at the Ministry of Justice, and this is a nightmare scenario when this happens. What could have happened? What will be happening behind the scenes right now? What's going to happen and should happen in the next few hours before this scumbag is hopefully put back behind bars?
Well, first of all, Peter, good evening. And,
Good evening.
you know, I echo your sentiments. It is absolutely farcical. If it wasn't so serious, it would be laughable.
Agreed.
You know, clearly this shows how our prison service is in such a disarray. Procedures aren't followed for a simple error like this to be allowed to take place. You know, a prisoner is just not released on a say-so. There are several checks that he has to go through before he walks out of that gate, i.e., first of all, to identify him, to make sure that he knows where he's going, i.e., he should have been going to a detention centre and he should have known that. Thirdly, the release paperwork should say quite clearly that he is being released, still in custody, to a detention centre. So I don't know what's happened here as to why he's just been allowed to go through the gate. And, you know, the people of Essex and Chelmsford in particular, you know, I totally understand their anger, frustration, and quite honestly, their absolute unbelievableness in that something could happen like this.
Yeah, it seems a prison officer has been removed from duties while the investigation is ongoing. I'm surprised it's only one prison officer from what we understand.
So am I.
Yeah.
Yeah, so am I, because there is a chain of events from unlocking the door to identifying him at his cell, to going through his warrant, to making sure his features fit with his records features, to going through the release paperwork, being checked by a governor grade, and then finally being released by the custodial manager.
So just hold on a second, Vanessa. Sorry, just go through all that for us again. How there were about 6 steps there. Just tell us what happens when someone says this person is now due for release. What happened? Just tell us that again, because you're talking about the process here, and I just want to make sure that's clear in our viewer and listeners' minds, and in mine as well, in terms of all the times when this could have been caught.
Okay, so the first thing is when the prisoner is unlocked round about 6 o'clock. Any prisoners for discharge on that day are unlocked about 6 o'clock in the morning. They're identified at the door. They're asked their name and their number. They're taken down to receptions. There they are given fresh clothes. They're given a discharge grant of about £80 or so. Then they go to the reception officer, the reception senior officer. He will go through the discharge papers to make sure that the prisoner knows where he's going, whether he is being released, or whether in this case, or should have been in this case, he's going to a detention centre. Then he sees a custodial manager who, again, identifies the prisoner, make sure that the prisoner knows where he's going to, and then we'll finally release him. But prior to all of that, yesterday, a governor grade should have checked all the discharge papers. And somewhere procedurally, this has gone wrong.
So actually, you've outlined 4, 5, 6, 7 steps that would have happened today in and around, and yesterday someone at the governor grade should have signed this off. So actually, you're dealing with possibly up to a dozen people who could have been involved with this in some way?
Without doubt, yes.
Okay, and somewhere along the line, I mean, how easy is it for one thing to go wrong early in the process and then that to have a chain reaction for everybody else to say, actually, that's fine, this guy can go out? Or actually, is there, surely the point of the process is that someone catches this and says, actually, he shouldn't be discharged, and he shouldn't be discharged certainly to a, he should be discharged to a detention centre, but not to be at large?
Well, that is the what should happen, Peter. You know, it should be that somebody along the line should have picked up that this prisoner wasn't for discharge. This prisoner was being sent to a detention centre for deportation. And somewhere along the line, whether it was the original paperwork, I mean, I'm guessing now, I don't know. But if the original paperwork said that he was for discharge, then of course that puts everything else out. Whether it should have said he is for discharge to a detention centre, that's the difference. But somewhere along the line, that error should have been picked up.
So what will happen now? What sort of investigative process will happen? And I'm sure the Ministry of Justice, well, we know the Ministry of Justice is involved. We know the police are looking for this guy. Peter Blexley, our former police officer, who's our crime commentator, has been telling us what the police will be doing. What will be happening inside the prison, Vanessa?
You know, immediately the governor will commission an investigation, probably from an outside body, to understand where the failing was. The prison will be liaising with the local police to, if this guy has got any known contacts, he may be making his way to the Bell Hotel, which would probably be very dangerous for him, as I understand that there is going to be a demonstration there later tonight.
We're actually we're talking in just a second to Karen McIver from Epping Forest Reform UK. We'll chat to her in a second, but do continue, Vanessa.
But I mean, you know, Peter, we have talked many times about the failings of our broken prison service, and this is just another one to add to the list. And quite frankly, you know, the day that Daniel Khalif escaped from Wandsworth, there was a catalogue of events that led to that escape. There was a catalogue of failures of doing the procedures that are in place to prevent those. And yet again, You know, prison staff are under so much pressure with overcrowding. And, you know, David Lammy is absolutely, you know, going to be furious. I'm sure he is. What he's going to do about it, God only knows. He should have secured our borders.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a final thought. I mean, it's impossible to know at the moment, but I mean, all avenues, of course, will be investigated in regard to this. Human error, corruption. I mean, there's so many things this could be.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you know, my thoughts are it's more likely to be human error than corruption, and it's a big error. And unfortunately, I pray to God that nobody will be injured in the process of finding him or before he is found. You know, I can't stress enough how poor our prison services are to let something like this happen, particularly to a high-profile offender like this.
Yeah. Vanessa, as always, thank you. That's Vanessa Frake there. She's a Reform UK's Justice Advisor and a former prison governor herself. She's written a book called The Governor. She reminded us about Daniel Khalif. That was only September 2023. So here we are, barely 2 years on, another highly embarrassing that was an escape, whereas this is a highly embarrassing incident where the prison service says we're urgently working with police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at Chelmsford Prison. Well, Karen McIver, as I said, she's the branch secretary of Epping Forest Reform UK. And Karen, what an absolute farce. I know you were involved with the Bell Hotel protest previously. This guy was then convicted, sent to prison. You would have thought, hopefully this is the last we'll hear of him. Instead, there must be people in Epping on high alert this evening.
Yeah, good afternoon or good evening. Thank you for having me on. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? It's just beyond anything I think us normal British people can deal with. I mean, it's such a huge error. I just feel so sad for the family. It's more evidence of how our country is so broken. I mean, it's a shambles. Who on earth has done this? Who on earth has made this error? And how can it be one person? Surely this guy's got tagged. Surely these people, these criminals are tagged. Surely they're just not, you know, allowed to walk around free. It's beyond anything I can get my head around at the moment. I'm so sad. I'm so sad for the family. I'm sad for the people of Epping. I'm sad that our country is in this absolute mess. It's embarrassing, beyond embarrassment.
It's, as you correctly say, it is an absolute embarrassment. It's also terrible, as you say, for the family. There's a victim at the heart of all of this, someone who was attacked by this paedophile, and she said in her victim impact statement that she looks over her shoulder all the time because she worries about something like this happening again. One can only imagine what it is like for the victim of this paedophile today, tonight, as she and her family look at the news, realise that through apparently incompetence, this paedophile has been let on the loose in Essex.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, I have a daughter, I have nieces. I can't imagine how the parents are feeling, as well as the poor young lady. I mean, it's just awful. But you know, when they find this guy, let's hope they find him soon, by the way, because we're all going to be looking over our shoulders. So, you know, that's the whole reason why we've been peacefully protesting for so long, because of the concerns we have for the people inside the Bell Hotel. You know, what do they expect when they bring in undocumented men? You know, our borders are open to everybody. It's just so awful. And I think the British people, we are clever British people, and we can see what's going on here, and we're so frustrated because, you know, our elections are being cancelled left, right and centre. We're not able to make a stand at the poll, you know, at the box, and it's just everything sort of is happening in our country at the moment, and we feel like we don't have any control of it as British citizens, and we seem to be bottom of the line. It's just so bad at the moment.
Is there a protest, Karen? Is there a protest planned tonight at the Bell Hotel? Is that something that you've been involved with or heard about?
I'm not an organiser, and I haven't heard about it as of yet.
Okay,
So,
okay. No, I just want to. one of our other guests had talked about that. But listen, thank you, Karen McIver there, Brown Secretary at Epping Forest Reform UK, and stay safe on the streets of Essex. Jason's been in touch from the Lake District and says, what an absolute farce with the migrant manhunt. Every day there's a massive screw up and no accountability. Heads need to roll and be named and shamed. I felt that we should just play the Benny Hill music every time we see Starmer, Lammy, Cooper and the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood giving speeches. How much longer are we expected to tolerate this absolute madness? Our country is screwed. Lots of people worried. I've got people in Chelmsford sending me messages, sending me what they think are photographs of this guy as well, apparently on the streets. There are all real worries about this. The police say that they're looking for him. The prison service says they're urgently working with police to return the offender to custody following the release in error at HMP Chelmsford. The prison officer apparently removed from duties, and he'd been jailed, of course, for sexual assault. He is a paedophile. David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, says he's appalled at the wrongful release. Well, you may well be appalled, but there's a direct line that can be drawn from you, David Lammy, right down the scale to this prison officer. That is what happens when you're Justice Secretary. You've got to take responsibility for things that you may not have done yourself, but have happened on your watch. This wrongful release of the Epping Hotel asylum seeker and paedophile Hadush Kabatu. Lammy has said the sex attacker must be deported for his crimes, not on our streets. Well, sorry, mate, you're the government. You are the authorities. You are part of the system that screwed this up. Don't just say it's appalling. Don't just say it's dreadful. Don't just say this shouldn't happen. Sort it out. Stay with us here on Talk.
What is it all about? You know, think about it. She's going to tax you. Old Robert Reid is going to tax the hell out of you. She's going to tax the backside off you, all of us. And then you find out, so what's the government doing with all this money that they're taking of us? Oh, they're giving £111 million to Pakistan so that Pakistan can buy condoms for a family planning programme. And it's like, you know, I can't really use the language that I want to use when I want to say what I think about this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Stan the man from Cheshire, who says, just a thought, if the paperwork is incorrect, you cannot blame the prison officers. They can only go by the orders. Yeah, true, but they may well have known who this person is. We don't know exactly what's gone wrong, but certainly something very, very serious has gone wrong about this migrant, this paedophile who has been released in error. Stephen West Sussex says, thoughts on every illegal person convicted and receiving custodial sentence in the UK serve the time in a UK prison, and the bill for their imprisonment should be deducted from the foreign aid given to their country of origin until their deportation. Not ideal, but might add up over time considering the situation. Darryl in Blackburn says the paperwork comes from admin and security. It's not the guard's fault. They clearly had his name in the paperwork. You have prison ID with the name, photo, prison number on it, so all of that would have corresponded for ID, says Darryl in Blackburn. Lots of people in touch about this, and thank you to the number of people in Chelmsford who are sending me all sorts of bits of information here as well. The prison service saying that they are urgently working with police to return the offender to custody following a release in error. So there's an awful lot happening here. So we will certainly take all of our calls, text, tweets between now and 7 o'clock. Mark Littlewood is with me now. He's the Director of Popular Conservatism. Mark, we had you on to talk about other things, which we may get to in a minute or two. But first of all, your reaction to this, please.
Well, Peter, it's absolutely unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, the prison service, I think, have said it appears to be human error. I mean, I'll say so, a bit beyond an error. This is a complete catastrophe. I mean, you don't expect things like this to happen in tin pot third-rate countries. It's an absolute joke. Britain's becoming a laughing stock on the international stage and to its own citizens. Look, you're quite right, Peter. We don't know all of the details of what was on the paperwork, who filled it in, but surely there must have been someone somewhere exercising some degree of human intelligence that if it said on a form, let this guy go, I mean, presumably you would sort of double check, wouldn't you? And I'm hoping to God it's not just one prison officer who processes the forms. You would have thought that there's a matter like this, a high-profile case, you would have several people involved.
Well, we've been through this whole process actually with Vanessa Frick a little bit earlier this hour. She's a former prison governor who has told us there are at least 7 steps. Also yesterday, someone of governor grade, so you would hope they know basically what they're doing, has signed this off and said this guy should be released. Now the question is, was that released to a detention centre? Was there something that went wrong because it was a detention centre rather than being released onto the streets? So there's clearly serious errors happening here. David Lammy says he's appalled. He's throwing his hands up and saying it's all dreadful. I mean, you're the Justice Secretary. How much responsibility should he take, do you think?
I think quite an enormous amount. I mean, I think what we've got to get down to is, are there robust processes that a number of prison officers failed to abide by? And if that's the case, that the process should work if there's any degree of human intelligence in the prison service, then I guess you can't blame the Justice Secretary. If the process itself looks like it might be a bit feeble, I mean, if somebody's just sort of ticked one box saying release onto the streets rather than ticking the box next to it saying release into a detention centre, that would not be a very robust system, and the Justice Secretary needs to take responsibility for what the system is. I think you can't obviously expect him to be at the precise decision for the release of each and every prisoner. So we've got to get right to the bottom of this, and heads must roll. I mean, I gather that one prison officer has been presently discharged from his duties, but if, as you say, Peter, from a former prison governor, there are 7 or more people involved, I mean, these people need to be fired if they're responsible for it. So no, let's get to the bottom of what happened. We are just speculating, but it is absolutely extraordinary. And you would have thought that the people involved with this prisoner would be highly conscious that this is a very controversial, very unpleasant, very high-profile case. Mm-hmm. Surely we haven't let this man onto the streets just because one box has been ticked on some complex bureaucratic form. Some enormous questions, I think, to be answered by the prison service, and as you say, going right the way up to the Justice Secretary too. This is absolutely incredible. that something like this could happen in what most people, I still think, hope is a functioning and serious country. But I'm afraid we're becoming less and less like a functioning, serious country by the day. And this is just eye-wateringly bad. I mean, just hopeless and hapless and distressing in equal measure.
What do you make of the thought that he was in a UK prison in the first place? When he's convicted, should he have been deported immediately? I mean, obviously the conviction only happened 2 or 3 months ago now. It was in July when he was found guilty and sentenced. It's now, a few months after that, and the thought was that he was going to be deported to Ethiopia. From your perspective, should he have been in a UK prison at all, or do you think the entirety of the sentence should have been carried out served in Ethiopia?
So I'm a bit in two minds about this, Peter, because on the one hand, you could say if somebody is caught committing a criminal offence, especially one of this severity, that you should almost immediately deport them from the country. The slight problem there, of course, is it might mean that there is effectively zero punishment. Yep. I mean, I wouldn't be particularly confident of what he might face in Ethiopia.
Yep,
I don't know enough about the Ethiopian system, but that's the problem. So do you want some punishment swiftly followed by deportation? I think would probably be my optimal outcome, rather than just immediate deportation, in which case these sort of criminals don't necessarily face any time for the crime. But you would hope that we would have a system which could successfully move people from police stations to prison cells to deportation centres. If we haven't got that, well, then the entire system is in absolute disarray. But if we can fix the system, I think I would want people to serve some degree of time, some degree of punishment, and then to be removed from the country. But it seems to me that we've got a system that can't even function at the most basic level. So I might be striving for something which is way beyond the capacity of the British prison service.
Mark, thank you. That's Mark Littlewood, the director of the Popcons, Popular Conservatism. Kemi Badenoch has now tweeted, we know that Farage has as well, the fake asylum seeker who was sexually assaulting a child in Epping has been released in error, says Kemi Badenoch on Twitter. How does that happen? Because the entire system is collapsing under Labour, she alleges. Government mistakenly letting people out instead of deporting. Those they deport are coming back. Nothing of substance has been done to address the threat to women and girls living in these communities. Labour can't run a bath. Conservatives voted against Labour's prisoner release programme because it was putting predators back on our streets. But this man has only just been convicted. A level of incompetence that beggars belief, says Kemi Badenoch. Only Conservatives have a plan for stronger borders and public orders. Well, Kemi, the Conservatives had a net gain of 500 prison places. They were running at 99% capacity. Clear problems in the prison system. I know that because I worked in the Ministry of Justice for 6 months, and there were many, many issues there when I was special advisor, and they didn't get much better as time went on. So she has a point, certainly. I agree with some of what she says, but I don't think the Conservatives' record is anything to write home about on this either. And yes, I was part of that. Ian in Staffordshire, tell us your thoughts on this story.
Hi, Peter. Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, in the 80s, this isn't rare, I don't think, because in the 80s, I was given a 6-month prison sentence, and I was released after 3 weeks.
By mistake or rightly?
No, wrongly.
Okay.
And I actually protested that I was given a 6-month sentence, and I should not be let out.
Right.
And I was let out with £20 in my pocket to send myself home. So I went to my local police station to try to give myself up and say, I think I've been wrongly released. And they said, go home, ignore it.
Wow. So you never went back to prison?
Yes, I did go back to prison, because 2 days later I tried again and said, look, I think I've still got a sentence to serve.
What were you in prison for?
Taking and driving away.
Okay. I mean, that's very honest of you to go back to the police. A lot of people would be, would not have done that, Ian, but it shows that even 40 years ago, things were, you've got to go through in order to be released. We had Vanessa Freck talk about that. There were clearly various points where you had said, actually, you're doing the wrong thing here.
Yeah, I even said that when they came to my cell door and said I was being released, I said, I don't think so. I think you're joking.
Goodness me.
And they sent me out, gave me a train ticket from Gloucester and it just left me to it, and I was absolutely gobsmacked.
Yeah, I'm sure you're worrying. Listen, thanks very much. I see in Staffordshire there. Thanks to Darren, he says, paedophiles let out, sexual assaults on a daily basis, murderers, towns being no-go zones, illegal immigrants coming in daily in their thousands. Starmer and his useless government should hang its head in shame. They're making this country a laughingstock, but nobody is laughing. Smash the gang, stop the boats, one in, one out. What a shambles. We cannot wait nearly 4 years for these cretins to be removed from office. Danny Shaw, who is the crime commentator, is coming up soon. We're also going to speak to someone from the Sun's news desk. They've broken this story, telling us about this absolute farce, the migrant manhunt, the Epping Hotel paedophile who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old schoolgirl in her uniform. He's on the run after he was accidentally released from jail. Britain 2025. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Katie, who's been in touch. She says, as a sexual abuse victim of many years by two family members, I am mortified that this predator has been released by mistake. This is not acceptable under any circumstances. As a victim, you always look over your shoulder all your life. Knowing that person is released is terrifying. Thank you for all your station does on these cases. Listen, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I know you must know how the victim of this dangerous paedophile must be feeling this evening. Let's speak to Danny Shaw, who is the Home Affairs commentator, former advisor to Yvette Cooper. Danny, what an absolute farce.
Absolute farce, Peter. Completely embarrassing. You know, if there was one prisoner in the country who you would have thought that the authorities would ensure, you know, that all the rules would be followed, that the process would be absolutely copper-bottomed, and that this prisoner would serve all the time that he's meant to serve, and then he would be released into an immigration detention centre for his deportation, and that everything would be done to ensure that that takes place, then it is this man, Hadush Gebatu. Because of the notoriety of his case, because of the issues around the Bell Hotel and the disruption and the disputes and the legal cases and everything else. And, you know, and yet he's been released in error. I mean, you know, it beggars belief, and it does serve, I think, as a symbol of Britain's broken criminal justice system and the dysfunction and the lack of coordination also between the prison system and the immigration removal system. For years and years and years, those two bits of the system have not worked well together. Peter, I'm sure you'll remember from your days in government.
Absolutely.
But there have always been problems, and it cost the Home Secretary, Charles Clarke, his job back in 2006, I think it was, when over 1,000 prisoners, foreign national prisoners, were released from jail, and they hadn't been considered for deportation. And that led the Home Secretary to lose his job over that scandal. Not suggesting this is going to happen to David Lammy, the Justice Secretary. It's one prisoner, high profile one, but that's how serious it gets.
There are so many people who are now worried. There are people contacting me saying there are photos flying around the internet about people who claim to have seen him on the streets of Chelmsford. There's now an investigation underway. What sort of, how often should we be updated about this? What do you expect is happening behind the scenes? How can they get him back under lock and key?
Look, the police are very, very good at finding people. When they have a manhunt on and there's an individual that they must find, they generally find them. And prisoners who are released unexpectedly, in his case, who don't probably have much means, don't have much money, or places to stay and so on, their options are pretty limited. So I expect that he will be found and located probably quite swiftly. However, he does present a risk. The judge at his trial said there was a risk of reoffending. He's on the sex offenders register for 10 years. He's on a sexual harm prevention order for 5 years. He still had 3 months of his sentence in custody still to serve because he'd been on remand since July. So it's a real concern for people. I completely understand that. You know, this isn't a prisoner who was, you know, nearing the end of a long sentence and everyone said he'd been rehabilitated and he was released a couple of weeks early. We're not talking about that situation. This man still presents a danger and he should be removed from the country. So it's a massive political embarrassment, but it's also a security concern as well.
Thank you, Danny Shaw there, the Home Affairs commentator and former advisor to Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. Don in Chelmsford, where this has happened, says, when they catch the paedophile migrant and send him home, he'll probably return in a rubber dinghy. Cynical, but probably true. Graham in Bushy says, I presume Keir Starmer will be dealing with his prison mess, or has he already clocked off for the weekend? Well, just to let you know, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, will be on my show on Sunday, and we will be talking to him about the doctor strike and many other things, but we will be holding the government to account, hopefully, by Sunday's programme, which is between 10 and 1, as is my Saturday show tomorrow. We will be in a situation where the scumbag is back behind bars. The publication that broke it is The Sun. Tom Seward is his assistant news editor. He joins me now. Tom, again, what a farce.
Just absolutely gobsmacking. I mean, you could not make it up. When we got the tip, so it was our political reporter, correspondent Noel Hoffman, who rang it in earlier from one of her sources. We just couldn't believe it. We absolutely couldn't believe it. We got Chief Reporter Mike Hamilton stacked up very, very quickly with his sources in the Justice Department. And it is beyond belief. You could not make this thing up. We've got reporters chasing around Chelmsford trying to find him, looking at the police hunt for this incredibly dangerous man. But it's just...
And so many people, including people in Chelmsford, getting in touch with me saying, like, we're not going to go out tonight. This guy could well be on the streets. He sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl in her school uniform.
Precisely. And I mean, Danny Shaw said it then. Even the judge said that this man poses a significant risk of reoffending. So you can imagine if you're, a resident in Chelmsford like Dawn, you would be worried today, particularly if you've got young children or young grandchildren. The other thing that's been doing the rounds just as we were coming on air was this video of Hadouche supposedly walking past a prêt-à-manger in the middle of Chelmsford. He's handed a piece of fruit, I think, by another man. He's wearing his prison issue tracksuit. It's a grey tracksuit, and he's got this big kind of clear plastic bag with what looks like kind of police evidence bags in it.
Are we sure it's him?
Yeah, Yeah, we are. We've been onto our sources here in government, and we're pretty sure it is him. It looks like he's walking towards the train station. So, question mark is just where was he going? But if people in Chelmsford could recognise him enough to take that video,
well, why
on earth could that prison officer not recognise him? I mean, he is probably the most distinctive face in Essex, surely, over the last few months. So it beggars belief.
Huge coverage in the paper tomorrow, I'm sure.
Precisely, wall to wall.
Okay, listen, thank you. That's Tom Seward there, who's Assistant News Editor of The Sun. Plenty more to come on this. We've got Mike Neville, who is going to be joining us as well, another crime commentator who contributes to this station. You can read all about it in The Sun online, thesun.co.uk, and also in the paper tomorrow. For the meantime, Tom, thank you, and thanks to everybody who's been in touch. Ian in Walsall says if this had happened under the Conservatives, Labour would be up in arms, calling for the Justice Secretary's head. Lammy should go. Mark in Selby says in one day, Labour has lost an election, lost a prisoner, and I would say lost the confidence of the British public. However, they lost that within a month of taking charge. What will they lose next? Darren says paedophiles let out. Oh, I've read that previously, but there's so many people getting in touch about this. Starmer says Chris in Brighton should spend less time swanning around, throwing yet more of our billions at his best pal Vladimir Zelensky, and spend more time and effort sorting out the absolute mess that is Clown World UK. Starmer seems to think that the more he hugs Zelensky, the less we realise what a terrible Prime Minister he is. He is wrong in that assumption. Lots more to come on this, including Mike Neville next here on Talk. Get your thoughts on the air. Give me a ring about this one story in town today, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
What is it all about? Think about it. She's going to tax you. Old Robert Reid is going to tax the hell out of you. She's going to tax the backside off you, all of us. And then you find out, so what's the government doing with all this money that they're taking of us? Oh, they're giving £111 million to Pakistan so that Pakistan can buy condoms for a family planning programme. And it's like, I can't really use the language that I want to use when I want to say what I think about this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Loads of people getting in touch about the prisoner who was released in error. Thank you to Wayne, who says, how long do you think it'll be before Keir Starmer does a social media post telling us the migrant pedo release error wouldn't have happened if we'd all a digital ID? If he does, then it's all too convenient. Martin says, a health service riddled with anti-Semitism, a parliament filled with terrorist sympathisers, a student level politics, Home Office and justice system so incompetent it's not fit for purpose. And now another example of the prison system being a basket case. If maybe you just switch the radio on, maybe you switch the telly on. Hadish Kabatu, the paedophile asylum seeker, has been released in error by mistake by the prison service. Another person on Twitter says, has Justice Secretary David Lammy resigned yet? If not, why not? Robert says, how do you accidentally release someone from jail? Very good point. And another person, Nat, says, my jaw's been on the floor since your breaking news and in reaction to all of that. Another person says, I'm betting whoever the Labour government minister who's drawn the short straw to do the weekend political media programmes will be having a sleepless night. Well, that's Wes Streeting. He's going to be on with me on Sunday, and believe me, I will be asking about it. It will be my first question. Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard detective, thank you for joining us. Good to have you on the programme, Mike. What an absolute shambles.
It's an absolute fiasco, isn't it? And once again, we see incompetence. You know, it's just quite incredible. And these, too many of these asylum seekers or the people who come across on these boats, the men on these small boats, are putting women and girls at risk. And how must you feel if you're a father or husband or whatever in Chelmsford or wherever tonight? Because this man is a serious risk. When the judge sentenced him, he said he had no remorse and was at significant risk of reoffending, and I'm sure that the Essex and Metropolitan Police are on the case right now.
What will they be doing right now? Just talk us through this from their perspective, because as a couple of our guests, Danny Shaw, Peter Blexley, others have said, the police are very good at finding people, but this scumbag has been on the loose for a number of hours now, and it's dark outside. How will they be trying to find him? What will they be doing, Mike?
Right, so we know, for example, there'll be all sorts of intelligence checks. What do we know about this man? Has he got any associates? Who did he hang around with at the hotel? Who might he contact? Then you've also got the issue of facial recognition. Essex Police have recently got that. The Metropolitan Police have it. The British Transport Police have it at the railway stations. And so no matter how dark it is, so you get high level of good CCTV at stations and on trains. So I imagine they've got the facial recognition deployed, particularly at Liverpool Street, because that's where he'll arrive in London if he gets the train from Chelmsford. And I imagine the police have deployed that already. There'll be patrols out looking for him. The CCTV operators in the town, they'll have been tasked to search for him. And as I say, there'll be a real liaison with other police forces where it's suspected he might go, which is what the intelligence checks reveal.
How big a deal is this for the police service? They'll be throwing, presumably, all the resources they have at this.
Yeah, absolutely. This is they will want to catch this man as soon as possible, because you can see the pressure will be laid on from the Home Secretary to the Commissioner and the Chief Constable in Essex to make sure that this man is found as quickly as possible, because politically as well, this is a massive embarrassment, isn't it, for the Home Office. For the prison service, it's absolutely ridiculous. I see that the officer responsible has already been suspended, but it's quite incredible, isn't it, that you would have such a high-profile prisoner released in this way. It just beggars belief, and you just wonder what is going on in that department that this could happen.
We, of course, don't know if that prison officer who has been suspended is the person responsible for it. We'll just keep ourselves clear on that. But, of course, there is an investigation at the moment. He's been removed from duties while the investigation is ongoing. We also have David Lammy saying he's appalled. I mean, sorry, mate, you're the Justice Secretary. Buck stops with you. Also, the prison service saying we're urgently working with police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at HMP Chelmsford. Public protection is our top priority, and we've launched an investigation into this incident. We know from previous news stories that it can go wrong, prison transfers and things, especially to the asylum system or to the deportation system that he was part of. But this is really significant. I mean, what would you say to the people in Essex tonight, in Chelmsford? Should they stay inside? What should they do?
Well, this man is a risk to women and girls, and so I would suggest if it was my daughters, they wouldn't be going out without me, taking them to wherever they need to go. And of course, the police will be out in force, I imagine, to patrol Chelmsford, making sure that people are safe, particularly in the town centre. But this man is just a dreadful risk, and people have to be careful, especially girls.
From those who have been protesting at the Bell Hotel, I mean, this is their nightmare come true, really, isn't it? Because finally, this guy was actually convicted. He was put in prison, and you would think, okay, that's basically the last we're going to hear from him. He's in prison. He's soon to be deported to Ethiopia. That was something that was meant to happen, or meant to be in the process of happening. But I mean, this will re-traumatise the victim, no doubt. This will re-traumatise people who've been victims of sexual assault anyway, who live in the area, who are dealing with this. We've already had someone in touch saying it's absolutely awful. She looks over her shoulder all the time anyway. It really needs to be resolved very quickly, Mike, doesn't it?
You're absolutely right, Peter. And the worst case scenario is he gets to London and gets out of Liverpool Street Station, because London, you can just vanish.
Yeah.
You know, that is the problem with London. It's so vast. As you've got contacts there, they'll be really needing to stop him getting there, because that's where, like I say, he'll be gone, and he'll be very, very difficult to find. Hence, I think there'll be a real police presence, as I say, at Liverpool Street Station, where the Essex trains go into. But I think this incident, it just tells people again about broken Britain, that things don't work. You know, the first duty of the state should be to protect its citizens. And here the citizens have been let down, particularly women and girls. They've been let down again, and they'll see this. What is going on in this country that we cannot keep in prison a man who's been sentenced for a wicked crime and get him deported? It just tells everybody that the whole thing is a joke, and it just needs to be sorted out. The whole thing needs to be broken down and started again.
Mike, thank you. That's Mike Neville, our retired Scotland Yard detective. We've made the decision at this station to go rolling on this story. We've been covering it for the last 2 hours. Just to let you know, the BBC at the moment is doing some reporting, really important reporting, on the slow motion footage revealing the secrets of snake bites. Thank you to Dan and Kent, who says, since Labour we've had the Southport killer put in prison and given boiling water as a weapon, the Manchester bombing terrorists giving privileges to harm, and now the main protest of the summer against unvetted immigration on the loose. Molly says about the immigrant manhunt, how on earth are Labour going to blame the Tories for this one? They blame them for everything. Don't get me wrong, I'm reformed through and through, but every mistake made by Labour is the Tories' fault. I am positive on the other side of the news at 7 o'clock, Samara Gill will be covering this. Samara, what an absolute shambles.
Oh my gosh, Britain is officially broken. And if this case doesn't show that, then I don't know what does. I mean, again, thank you for covering all this the past couple of hours. We will continue to run with it. We will have Jamie McIver live on the scene at the protest that is going on in Epping right now. And he will be talking us through sort of how the public is feeling about this, because people are angry, Peter.
So there's a protest then that's this evening near the Bell Hotel where people have been protesting previously?
Yes, so it's a sort of a splash protest, something very put together,
quickly
just
organised,
yeah, which is totally fair. I think people, again, you know, their cries weren't heard when the case was overturned to get those migrants removed out of the hotel, and now again they have been betrayed by this government.
They would have thought, presumably, I mean, I spoke to Karen McIver previously, Jamie's mother, and those people would have reasonably thought, we'll never hear another word from this guy. He'll be deported to Ethiopia. That's it. Goodbye. Good night, Vienna. But actually, instead, what has happened is he's back in the news. He's re-traumatising those victims. He's re-traumatising victims of sexual assault, some of whom have been in touch with us today. And the people there in Epping who must be worried themselves, although they've come out on the streets.
When you think about it, he is one of the most high-profile illegal immigrant sexual offenders, and the fact that he was able to be just freed because of some paperwork debacle just shows the incompetency of this. I mean, when you look at, apparently David Lammy is absolutely fuming right now. There are F-bombs being put up in his office. In
the Ministry of Justice.
Yeah,
but at the same time, he's the Justice Secretary. You know, you are the government, mate. The buck stops with you. You may not have actually done this yourself, David Lammy, but you've presided over this.
Yeah, I mean, and are we surprised? I mean, that man is an absolute... I mean, he's in shambles. He couldn't... I mean...
Not exactly a mastermind.
No, well, No, I mean, if he doesn't know what cheeses are which, then
exactly.
How is he meant to actually protect these protect us from these foreign criminals? And I think that this will really, really become a sort of landmark case as to what's actually going on, because he was meant to be deported. This migrant, this guy who is an actual predator, who is now out on the streets. Yes, he is.
Just to run you through all the details here, the prison service spokesman said, we are currently working with police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at HMP Chelmsford. Public protection is our top priority, and we've launched an investigation into this incident. We're also hearing, Samara, that a prison officer has been removed from duties while the investigation is ongoing. Vanessa Freck, who we spoke to earlier, former prison governor, she's surprised it's only one person, because there are all those steps. About an hour ago, Vanessa brought us through 7 different, I counted them, 7 different steps before someone is let out. Surely someone would have said, hold on a second, isn't that the paedophile guy from the Bell Hotel? Should he be being let out, for example? It's astonishing.
You make such a good point, and I think, is this the person who is going to now have to take the full blame for everything? Have they just found one person that they can pin this all on? Because I don't think that's the case. I agree with you. Everyone within this process needs to be held accountable, but knowing how this current system works, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, at least they've quickly done that, but who knows? We'll continue to roll as we get more and more news throughout the evening.
Samara Gill is on the other side of the news. She'll be here between 7 and 9, and then What Just Happened will be on between 9 and 10. We'll be covering this story for definite tomorrow morning on my show between 10 and 1, and also on Sunday between 10 and 1 we've got the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who's going to be joining us, in fact, first thing tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Sarah Pochin's going to be on for